I'm on a mission to get every human being in the world to add one simple thing to their morning routine. And it is called the high five habit. And here's what it is. Every morning after you brush your teeth and you get that gunk out of your mouth so you're not spreading that nasty breath everywhere, okay? I want you to take a moment, put your toothbrush down, and look at the human being in the mirror. That's not your reflection. That is a human being who needs you. A human being who's beaten down, who feels forgotten, who is so sick and tired of your criticism. And I want you to just stand there and look at them and take a moment, because the rest of your day is going to be about everybody else. And then I don't want you to say a thing. This is the genius of this habit. You can be on your lowest morning, which I was when I, again, divine intervention or stupidity. You can be the judge, right? It was April 2020, and I was having a moment in my life where I just felt overwhelmed by life. I was waking up, the anxiety had come back. I felt like life was unfair. I had lost my dream job. We were in the middle of the pandemic. My kids were in a state of huge grief and anger and frustration because university, had closed, and, now they're dealing with it. I had a bunch of like all of a sudden my business is imploding. And, don't forget, just over 10 years ago, I was in a crisis financially where my husband and I were about to lose we couldn't even pay for groceries. My dad was lending us money.
Yeah.
And so it was triggering all of that. And I was thinking this, like, I've worked so hard. I'm a good person. Like, how could you be doing this to me? Like, I don't deserve, like, just.
And you were pretty successful at that point already, right?
God, successful. I was the number one female motivational speaker in the world. I had a daytime syndicated talk show in the United States. So 175 shows a year, giving advice. I, had the 5-second rule book, which was self-published and a huge millions of copies sold.
But I think that's the powerful thing about this story. Even with all that success, you were still racked with self-doubt and anxiety and negative thoughts.
Because I hadn't had the biggest breakthrough of my entire life yet. And I had it one morning in April of 2020. You see, the 5-second rule is extraordinary, but it doesn't address what I believe is everybody's fundamental issue. And everybody's fundamental issue is that you either hate yourself or you do nothing but judge yourself. And this habit of relentless self-criticism and relentless self-rejection is the reason why you're unhappy. It's the reason why you're never satisfied. It's the reason why you can't take a compliment and why you're uncomfortable feeling celebrated. And it all comes down to the fact that when you stand in front of the mirror every single morning, you have this really subtle way that's not so subtle of starting your day by rejecting yourself. And I'm going to unpack this because it's unbelievably powerful when you start to truly understand this. Because if you can't look in the mirror and authentically see a human being that you respect, that you encourage, that you like, that you're cheering for, I'm going to even leave love off the table because I think that is so unattainable for where people are right now. Let's just go with, can you accept yourself? Can you like yourself? Can you see a person that's worthy of support, worthy of your encouragement? Can we just start with that baseline? Because for my research, the average person cannot. From my research, 50% of men and women do not or cannot look at themselves in the mirror because they are either disgusted by the person they see or they are disappointed by them. And for those of us that can look in the mirror, we're still rejecting ourselves because we focus on what we don't like. or we start to mindlessly think about all the things that we haven't done right or that we didn't do yet. On this particular morning, April 2020, I'm overwhelmed by my life. I drag myself into the bathroom. I immediately see my reflection and I'm like, oh, God, you look like hell.
Yeah.
I start ticking off all the things, the saggy neck, one boob lower than the other, how exhausted I look, the gray hair coming in, how old I'm starting to seem.
Yeah.
And then the mind, once it goes negative, keeps going in that direction unless you're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, not thinking about that. But so my mind's like going down the drain. I'm like, why'd I get up so late? I got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. God, you didn't even, text him back yet. And the dog still needs to be. And I'm like, the beat down, the boom, boom, boom starts. And, I don't know what came over me. But that morning standing there, could not think of a thing to say. And here's the important part. When you feel like shit, when you're overwhelmed by your life, you're not going to believe a pep talk anyway. Because it doesn't match how you feel. And so for whatever reason, I literally just raised my hand and I high-fived the woman that I saw in the mirror because she looked like she needed a high five. She looked like she needed somebody to say, it's going to be okay. You can do this. Get out there. And, from that very first one, it wasn't like lightning came crashing through the ceiling and, stuck me in the head. That's not what happened. But there's definitely a switch inside each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So, think about the walls here.
Yeah.
Even when the lights are off, there's electricity in these walls. Even during your worst moments, there is vitality ripping through your veins. There is an electrical life force within you. And life can turn that switch off, but it's still there. There was something about this high five action that felt like a flip, like the switch flipped on, and all of a sudden the energy could connect back and something inside me turned on. Now, that first morning, I didn't go, yeah, that's not what happened. I just felt this sort of shift to, all right, you got a roof over your head, your family's healthy, you've saved money. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Get out there. I didn't even think those things. It was more like the electricity, the energy in me, this vitality kind of kicked in. But it was the second morning where the profound nature of what I was stepping into really kicked in. So I wake up, anxiety, ankles right up the legs, feel like the rush of, oh God, something's wrong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I get out of bed. I start walking to the bathroom, and it's as I'm walking to the bathroom, I'm not even in there yet, that I feel something I have never felt in my entire adult life. And it's this. When you're about to go to a cafe and you're going to meet somebody you're really excited to meet, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody you really love, you're going to see them.
Yeah.
What do you feel right as you're about to walk in the cafe?
You're excited. You're upbeat. You're anticipating something good happening.
Yeah. I actually realized I was feeling that way about seeing myself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm 53 this year. I don't think until that morning in April 2020, I had ever had an experience as an adult of being excited to see the human being Mel Robbins. I've been excited to see an outfit or a haircut or the way new eyeshadow might look. But the human being? The way our kids, when they're really, really little, just love the sight of themselves? This unconditional support and celebration that's hardwired in your DNA when you're born?
Yeah.
And so as I rounded the corner that second morning, that's when the profound nature of this started to really hit me. And I stood there and I stared at the woman in the mirror. And I realized I don't think I've ever asked myself the question, what does she need from me today? I've never joined in partnership with myself. I have been so busy trying to get shit done, trying to make sure people like me, trying to make sure the bills are paid, trying to make sure everybody else is okay, trying to do all this stuff that is the stuff of our lives, that I have forgotten about the most important person, and that is myself. And again, I'm going to go back to a point that we have been talking about kind of in various ways, which is we all know that we're supposed to love ourselves. We all know that we're supposed to be kind to ourselves. You can read a quote on Instagram. You should talk to yourself like your best friend. The problem is how. You read a quote like that, you're like, no shit, Sherlock. How do I do it? I mean, like, what? Seriously? Right? How do you do that? I don't know. I've been beating the shit out of myself for years. How do I stop doing it? I don't know. And, here's the thing. Like, logically, we know it's stupid. Because if beating yourself up, being hard on yourself, rejecting yourself, trashing yourself, if it actually worked, we'd all be millionaires. We'd have rock star bodies. We'd have the best marriages on the planet. We'd never have to work a day in our life. We'd be on a beach somewhere. Like, it would work.
Yeah.
But instead, we have these patterns of thinking and small patterns of behavior, like not looking in the mirror at yourself is a form of rejecting yourself. Picking yourself apart is a habit of rejecting yourself. And so when you start your day like that, which you do, and then you go out into the world having rejected your very being, this is the reason why you are so thirsty for everybody else's validation. This is the reason why you are seeking your worth in the money that you make, in the car that you drive, in the downloads that you get, in the likes that you have, in the neighborhood that you live in. You think your worth is outside of you. And I'm here to tell you the secret to your fucking life is grab that worth and bring it back home. Start practicing a physical habit, an action that demonstrates to your brain that you respect yourself, that you believe that you're worthy, that you deserve forgiveness, that you deserve encouragement, that you believe in you. And as you start to practice the physical action, the universal symbol for I got you, I love you, I celebrate you, I see you, I believe in you. When you practice this physical action, the neuroassociation that is already in your brain with the high five to yourself in the mirror takes over. It's insane how this works. The science is mind-blowing. I think this is 1,000 times more powerful than the high five habit because it cuts down to the core of who you are.
You think it's more powerful than the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 habit?
Hell yes, I do. Hell yes, because the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that will push you to take action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool you use to cut off the worries that trigger anxiety. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that you use to create a moment of objectivity and control when you're normally triggered so you can consciously choose a different response.
Yeah.
The high five habit goes all the way down to the core of who you are and how you treat yourself. And when you become a human being who has compassion for yourself, who likes you, it won't matter what happens out there.
Yeah.
Because everything in here is healed and taken care of. And so, somebody can say to me, I don't love you anymore. I don't like you. It'll sting, but it doesn't change the fact that I still like myself. Because I practice and demonstrate it. That's the difference.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the hidden magic in the high five habits is, because I've been trying it the last few days, right?
And what did you experience?
It is powerful because...
Well, walk us through. Like you're standing at your bathroom sink. Yeah, and walk us through your experience.
Well, first of all, you have to take a pause from your life. Whatever you were going to do, it requires an intentional pause to go, no, I'm going to now do this action for myself. And I've got to say, before I tell you how it went, I think it would have been very different for me a few years ago because I feel self-compassion, not seeking your worth from outside, from other people, from download numbers, likes, what people say about you, which was a huge part of my life. Mm-hmm. I feel that having put a lot of that to bed now and really feeling that I actually like the person I see in the mirror these days. So I kind of feel 5 years ago, I would have had a different experience with it, but it was still powerful because you are just looking at yourself and you're putting your hand on the mirror And I think what it is, it's just that pause, that moment of seeing me. Like you are seeing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, obviously as a guy, what do? We're often looking in the mirror. We might be looking at our beard as we're shaving, right?
Yeah.
But you're not looking at your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're just looking at, I need to shave. Oh, I missed a bit here. Let me get rid of that. And then you crack on, right? Or you look at your face and your hair, but you're not really looking at yourself.
Right.
You're seeing your silhouette. You are seeing yourself, but you're not seeing yourself, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was really powerful, was that it's just another, like, I feel it's just another tool now, which is going to take me all of 2 seconds, if that's 5 seconds tops. It's not as if I don't have time to add that in. There's no harm in adding it in. And frankly, I like adding it in. It makes me feel good. It's like, and I think it's what you say, it's the action.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything if you're not in the mood to say
I
anything.
don't want you to say anything, actually. And the reason why is the neuroassociation. So,
What do you mean by that?
well, here's what I mean by that. So, when you high five someone else, what does the action of a high five communicate?
It's just a universal symbol of you got this, I see you, you're great, we can do this. It depends on the situation, but it's a good feeling. It's a mutual sort of validation type experience.
Tell me about the London Marathon and getting high fives.
Oh, I mean,
what did a stranger's high five mean to you?
It just gave you, like, and that's the key, it's strangers, right? You don't know them and they're looking at you and you're looking at them, or maybe you're not even looking at them. You just went through, you give a high five. It's like you've taken a shot of feel goods. It's validation. It's like, hey, you know what? We're in this together. You're standing at the side cheering, I'm running. But at that moment, it was like common humanity. It was like, there was no animosity. And actually, it's kind of one of my big learnings from the London Marathon actually was, and it relates to this, I think, is that that's kind of who we are. Like in what is considered a very divided world at the moment, I went and did the London Marathon and all I saw was love, strangers giving love to other people that they didn't know, right? And how did they give that love? Through cheering, but more often than not, with a high five.
Correct. It is a universal symbol of encouragement, of love, of celebration. And the neuroassociation, whether you live in a culture where you've been high-fived or not, the neuroassociation is still there because you have seen them in sport.
Yeah.
You've seen them in marathons. You've seen teachers give them to kids. So your brain has a lifetime of programming in your subconscious that is triggered by this action. It is neurologically impossible to high five yourself and think you're a loser, you failed, I don't like your face. Your brain will not allow you to do it because the neuroassociation is so entrenched. It has only ever meant, I celebrate you, I see you, I got you, keep going, you got this, I'm behind you.
As you say that, Mel, it makes me think of gratitude, because when we are feeling grateful, we can't feel down, we can't feel anxious, we can't feel annoyed with ourselves. And in some ways, this is kind of gratitude for ourselves.
Correct. Because the thing about gratitude, which obviously has tremendous, demonstrated, proven benefits in your life, most of us are grateful for things outside of us.
Yeah.
What I'm teaching the world to do is to unlock neuroassociation in your mind and in your nervous system and aim it back at yourself. And use this simple habit to interrupt the critic, to break the default loops in your mind associated with judgment, shame, criticism, hatred for self, and to replace it with a new default setting of seeing yourself the way you see your child, which is love. Yeah. Like my kids do stuff that piss me off all the time. And I can be upset with them or disappointed with them, but I never stop loving them.
Yeah.
And there is something that has happened to each and every one of us that as life's pains and heartaches and disappointments and setbacks sort of stack up, we stop loving ourselves. We start judging ourselves more. We start condemning ourselves more. We start rejecting ourselves more. We start trying to seek somebody else's love and approval in order to fill up this well inside of us that we've been digging because we've been rejecting ourselves. And so, it's so powerful because the action alone is what communicates it. If you're looking at yourself and you raise your hand on your hardest days, what the high five says is not, yeah, I'm amazing. Like, this is not going to turn you into a narcissist. This is grounded in compassion.
Yeah.
This is basically saying, I see you. You're right. This is hard. And you know what? You can do this. And I'm going to be here. And I've got your back. And when you send yourself into your day with that physical action, it leaves an imprint in your mind and spirit. Now, there's a couple reasons why. I don't even write about this part in the book because I didn't know this until I started doing podcasts for the book.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amen told me, who's, one of the leading experts in the brain, that one of the reasons why you feel better when you do it, no matter how terrible of a morning it is because your brain has always given you dopamine when somebody else high fives you.
Yeah.
So these sorts of gestures are rewarded in the brain. So when you simply high five yourself, your brain doesn't distinguish between me high-fiving me and me high-fiving you. It just sees, oh, I know what that is. Drip, dopamine. Oh, I believe in that person. The second thing that happens is that your body is hardwired for celebratory energy. This is that electricity that's in the walls that has a switch that you can turn on and off. And so, for example, when you cross the finish line of the London Marathon, what do you instinctively do?
High five someone.
Yeah, and raise your hands, right? When your favorite team scores, raise your hands. When you yell surprise at a birthday party, you raise your hands. When you say hello, you raise your arm. When you go to high five somebody, you raise your arms. When you hug somebody, you raise your arms. This is wired through your entire body. And normally we give that celebratory energy to other people or things.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, when you high five yourself, you flip the switch. You flip the switch and give yourself a little bit of that vitality that's coursing through you to help you move into your day.
Yeah, I see it as almost like it is about the high five, but it's not in many ways as well, because it's like if you're going down a road and the high five to yourself sets you off on a different path for the rest of that day compared to had you not done it, right?
1,000% right. So let's just use a great example that everybody can latch onto. Sport.
Yeah.
So if a team is about to play the championship in the league, right?
Yeah.
And they're the underdogs. What is the best way to send the team into that game? Is it to beat them down? Oh, you did a terrible job on the London Marathon. You're going to face plant in New York. Oh my God. And I saw your split times. We're fucked. No, that's not the best way to do it.
But that's what we do to ourselves.
Correct. Correct. And so I'm here to say, you don't have to say anything because you're not going to believe it. So we're going to cheat this. We're going to circuit your feelings.
You're bypassing
Correct.
words. It's like when you take like this ridiculous example, but it's like when you take a B12 supplement, but you take it sublingually, so it dissolves. So you bypass having to go into the gut, through the liver, and then you get it straight in.
Correct.
And it's got that feel to me.
1,000%. And so you send yourself into the game of life with that sort of optimism, with that resilience, with that compassion. And, look, some days you're going to laugh. Some days you might cry. People report some days you're going to just feel a little bit better. And some days you're going to high five yourself and laugh out loud from the dopamine and walk into your boss's office and ask for that raise or quit. Because you're going to remember that no matter what, you're going to be okay. You're going to remember that no matter what, you got your own back. You're going to remember that it doesn't matter if nobody says great job at that presentation that you worked on, because you can walk into the bathroom, as people have written to us, having practiced this. Hey, I did a presentation at work. Nobody said a damn word. The old me would have walked into my cube and cried and thought I was getting fired. I knew I did a good job. I walked into the bathroom and high-fived myself. Your kids can stick this in their back pocket. And it's a way to reset yourself when you start going down that negative road. And why is this important? It's important because the high five is not going to remove poverty. It's not going to remove discrimination. It's not going to remove diabetes. It's not going to remove the fact that somebody just said they want to divorce you. It's not going to remove all of the trauma. It doesn't change those things. It changes you.
Yeah.
And it changes your relationship with yourself and your ability to believe that through your actions and your attitude, you can move the needle on those things.
Yeah, I love that last point, Mel, because the similarities between the way you talk about this and the way I've been talking about certain behaviors and 5-minute habits for years, they are so connected. And one of the things I often say, and I want to just acknowledge you for what you just said, it's not going to change your life situation. You know, if you're in poverty, you're still going to be in poverty, but you're going to be a different person. You're going to be better able to face the stresses that are in your life.
Yes.
And I think this is such an important point, right? Because I have said this before on the show, but I always think it's worth reiterating that a lot of people feel that self-help or wellness is the preserve of the wealthy and the middle classes. But actually, habits like this, yes, they'll help someone who's got a ton of money in their bank accounts, because a lot of people like that are racked with self-doubt on the inside as well. But it's also going to help someone who is in poverty, or a single mum who's working 2 jobs and has got 3 kids and is really struggling. That little micro moment each morning where she sees herself in the mirror, she signals to her brain that she is worthy, that actually she's a human being with real feelings, and for all her qualities and all her, all the great things that she's doing, that has power, right?
Oh my God,
it is
amazing
free.
Power.
It is free. There's not a single person pretty much who is listening to this or watching this right now who couldn't just either pause or at the end go, all right, I'm convinced, Mel. Like, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't rush it. Don't rush it. So don't go into the bathroom and slap the mirror and be like, I didn't feel anything. I want you to, again, as you so rightly put, take a minute and just look at yourself, because for most people, that's the hardest part. I mentioned that, I get smarter and I learn so much from every comment and people that write their stories in. And one person, Allison Bird, a friend of mine, who made my ability to explain the depth of this so much deeper, because she said one thing to me when she tried it before the book came out. She said, I think it's working. I feel energized. I said, but what surprised me, Mel? I said, what? She goes, the resistance. I said, the resistance? What are you talking about? She's like, oh, first couple days I did this, I stood in front of that mirror and there was something in me that's like, I couldn't even raise my hand. There was this resistance. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I, of course, put something out. Hey, to the 700,000 people on the newsletter list, anybody trying this and feel any resistance? We write to everybody that's in our little test group. Anybody feel, holy cow. It turns out that most people do not have an immediate positive, oh, I'm doing this reaction. Most people have massive resistance to even trying it. And I want to explain why, because this is extraordinarily sad. And it also is an enormous opportunity for growth, because I believe, based on having 136,000 people go through a 5-day challenge online that we're monitoring in an app from 91 countries and seeing what they're reporting, I know that this takes 5 days to work. 5 days before you have an enormous breakthrough in how you see and relate to yourself. 5 days before the chemical, physiological, neurological, physical, and psychological change starts to go holy cow, this is crazy. This works like this. And so the resistance comes from self-judgment and self-condemnation. And I'm going to tell you a story to drive this home. For people who stand in the bathroom mirror when they try the high five habit and they feel this resistance in their body, first of all, let me say, it's really normal to think this is weird because it is, okay? It just sounds so cheesy. For those of us that grew up with Saturday Night Live, you're going to think of Stuart Smiley. You know, I'm nice. People like me. That skit they used to do about the guy who talked to himself in the mirror. You're going to stand there and go, seriously, Dr. Charlie and Mel Robbins, you two have lost your mind. But okay. If it's weird as you do it, that's a sign it's working.
Yeah.
So Dr. Leaf told me, oh, well, that's what it feels like when a new neural pathway is getting plowed. So if it feels weird, good, because we're teaching you to do the opposite of criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
But the resistance is something else. The resistance is the fact that every morning as you start your day, you drag your entire past into the bathroom with you. And if you're somebody who has experienced trauma or been abused or abandoned or neglected or grew up with chaos and addiction, or you've been the victim of a crime, or you're constantly having to deal with discrimination or violence, all stuff that you're not responsible for. There are a lot of people who take all of that from their past, and when they look at themselves, they see somebody who's damaged. They see somebody who's unworthy. They see somebody who is unlovable because of those things. And what the high five starts to become when you do it is it becomes literally an act of defiance. It becomes an act of strength. It becomes a sign that I'm a survivor. It becomes permission to heal. It becomes this deep sense of feeling and knowing where you are and the fact that you have an extraordinary future despite all of the pain and suffering that you have endured and survived. And then there are people that bring everything they regret, all the shame, all the regret, all that. So the cheating, the lying, the stealing, the hurt you've caused yourself or other people, the missed opportunities. And boy, did I get an unbelievable example of this in my own life. So, you know, I was doing the high five habit myself. And during the early days of the pandemic, my husband had just been diagnosed with depression. And he's a super healthy guy. He is a certified Buddhist meditation instructor. He leads men's retreats called Soul Degree. He's a yoga instructor. He's wildly involved with our community and with our family. He's a super high functioning guy. But he's just felt heavy. There's been like a cloud there, like a heaviness to him, like there's no light between his eyes. And so thankfully, you know, his therapist finally got him to go see a psychopharmacologist and somebody to do the advanced testing. They're like, dude, you have dysthymia. You have like really long-term depression. Like you're lucky you've been doing all this stuff because it's kept you alive. And you know, I turned to him at one point. I've been doing this for a couple weeks rather. And I'm like, you know, I know I'm not your doctor, and I know I'm not an expert in your mental health, but I really think you should try this high five thing. I really think it's going to help you with this depression. He's like, I'm not high five. It is the stupidest thing. I don't care what you're doing. No. And I'm like, okay, if you won't do it for yourself, would you just do it for me? Would you do it for 5 days? Because we're in the middle of researching this now. And I haven't even shared it with my audience yet. And I'm kind of like writing down in my journal what I'm feeling. And I've got a couple people on the team. Would you just do it for me? He's like, all right. So he kind of did the first one, like, are you happy? You know, typical spouse thing. Like, you know. So he did it for 5 days. And then I asked him what he thought. And he said, you're on to something really big. And I said, why do you say that? And I had no idea how dark my husband's thoughts were. I had no idea how much he was condemning himself, how much shame he felt. I knew that he was struggling with depression. I had no idea that for the past 7 years, the man who has stood next to me at the bathroom sink next to me would look up at the mirror and see a person that he hated. He saw a person that had failed. He believed that since the restaurant business didn't work, and since it left us 800 grand in debt, and that his wife had to go out and make the money, that he was the world's worst father, the world's worst husband, and he has been condemning himself every day for 7 years. And the reason he thought the high five was stupid is because you only high five people you care about. You only high five people who are winning. And he, of all people, didn't deserve it. And for me, I knew that he was struggling with shame around the restaurant business. I knew he was struggling with the amount of debt that we had and the fact that, he had, the investors lost money. Like, for me, I had a totally different experience. I'm like, you guys worked at that for 8 years? You made your investors whole? Like, hello, entrepreneurship? Like, we wouldn't have the 5-second rule without it. Are you kidding? Like, woohoo, we're winning. This is amazing. Like, his business partner had the same, like, he was proud of what they built, proud of how hard they worked. Chris, for whatever reason, that was not his story. Yeah. His story was condemnation, regret, shame. He could only see a failure. And, what was wild about that is, I've for years talked Chris up. I've for years have told him how proud I am of him. He was the CFO of the business as the company was taking off. Yeah. Like, he owns half of it. Like, he's an integral part of everything. Yeah. He doesn't see it that way. And that's an important part. Yeah. Nobody can heal you. Nobody can change how you talk to yourself. This is an inside job. And so if you relate to how my husband feels, I want you to understand that what Chris said to me was that this high five and pushing through the resistance is an act of forgiveness. It's an act of healing. It's an act of support and compassion that allows you and shows you that you are giving yourself permission to feel good again, that you deserve to be happy, that you deserve and that you can continue to push on and go do better and be better and feel better. And that of all people, you're going to stop judging you. And just put your questions in the comments and we will get to them in a little bit. Hey, Charlotte, one of the things that you could do is as you're scrolling through the comments, let's get a question from every platform today. And you can just hand them to me. Here you go, on a note card. Just write them down on a note card for me. Awesome. Or read them to me or whatever. All right, so page 37. Why not high five everyone else, Mel? I mean, why isn't the high five habit about high fiving everybody else in life? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Well, first of all, you already high five everybody else. You spend too much of your time seeing everything and everybody else and absorbing what they want, what they need, what they expect. See, this is why you're last on the list. This is also why you carefully manage your appearance, your facial expressions, your reactions. You're so concerned about meeting the external gaze of everyone around you. You think your self-worth and your self-esteem are reflected back by how other people perceive you. In fact, in one of the later chapters, we're going to get into people-pleasing and insecurity and how to catch yourself when you, how many of you struggle with people-pleasing? And how many of you wish you felt more secure? That's right. We are going to help you. The high five habit is going to help you tremendously. Very normal to struggle with people pleasing, very normal to feel insecure, but the high five habit is going to help you build up the security inside yourself. And it's going to help you learn how to like, support, and love yourself. Because when you like, support, and love yourself, it's not going to matter whether or not other people like, support, or love you, because their like or hate, or their love or hate, their like or dislike, their support or lack of support won't change the fact that you like, love, and support yourself. It starts with you. If they like you, or if they think you're smart, worthy, or good enough, then you feel smart, worthy, or good enough. How many of you feel like you only feel worthy if somebody else thinks you're worthy? That you only like yourself if you get the approval of somebody else? That you're waiting for somebody else to love you before you're going to love yourself? See, this is a huge mistake, and you're going to learn how to address this mistake in the high five habit, because we're going to teach you how to locate your self-worth, your self-love, your self-esteem back inside yourself. So you're looking in the wrong mirror, everybody, when you look for your worth in other people's approval. You see, 1 million likes on social media doesn't mean shit if you don't like yourself. I need you to flip the focus from looking outside of you for external validation and proof of your worth. I want you to stop looking at the number of likes and follows and views and praise and what you're getting paid and the car that you drive and the number that you weigh on the scale. And I want you to learn how to give that validation to yourself just because you're alive and you're standing here ready to live another day. So here's another question. I'm really surprised by how emotional the high five made me. When I high five myself in the mirror, I got emotional. I see a lot of you saying, me too. How many of you got emotional when you started high fiving yourself? Maybe not even on day 1, but day 2 or day 3, or maybe you've been doing the high five habit for a couple of weeks and you're like, why am I crying? Why does this swell up so much? Well, first of all, we're on page 38 for those of you following along. It is really, really normal to get emotional when you practice the high five habit. In fact, many people who try it are surprised by the emotions that come up. And you might relate to what they had to say. Alyssa said, I high fived myself in the mirror yesterday. I didn't think anything would happen, but I started crying out of nowhere. It's like my soul had been waiting on that high five and that recognition forever. Boy, I needed that. Or Wendy shared that after starting to do the high five habit, beginning her day by high fiving herself in the mirror, taking a moment of intentional reflection, she initially felt exhausted. Did anybody else feel exhausted by the high five? It's such a simple movement, but you feel emotionally gassed. Well, that night she found herself in bed early and overcome with emotion. But by the next morning, she woke up energized and suddenly able to do a bunch of tasks that she had been putting off. And she said, I think that starting my day with an intentional moment where I stare at the woman in the mirror and I give her support and celebration and I send her into her day, I think I released a lot of blocks by doing this. Anybody else relate to that? That you feel like things are releasing, that you're shedding a lot of emotional weight, that something's opening up inside of you by practicing the high five habit. And she said, if this happens to you, I want you to know this is normal. Sometimes the emotional release may make you feel sometimes the emotional release may be really positive. Michael said, I did the high five in the mirror and it felt amazing. I actually made myself blush. How many of you kind of cracked a smile or blushed or kind of laughed? It's kind of a weird feeling. That's the dopamine, by the way, releasing in your brain, because your brain doesn't know the difference between you high-fiving somebody else or getting a high five from somebody else or you high-fiving yourself. That's one of the reasons why this is so cool, because you're tapping into science and programming that's already conditioned into your body and using it to boost your mood, to clear away blocks, to build confidence, to feel more aligned with yourself, to build trust and partnership. It's like the coolest thing in the world. Jeanette told me that she can't help but jump in the air after her high five. Look, whatever your reaction is, positive, negative, emotional, whatever, just allow yourself to feel it, because we're trying to break the habit of rejection. We're trying to break the habit of you staring in the mirror and focusing on what you need to fix. Or for more than 50% of you, we're trying to break the habit of you rejecting yourself by not looking at yourself at all. But by practicing the high five habit, you learn how to stand with yourself and be with yourself. So another question in chapter 3, because we're handling FAQs in chapter 3. Why does the high five habit work if it's so simple? Well, the genius and the power of the habit is precisely because it's so simple. It would be easy to think that this is the stupidest thing you've ever heard, But therein lies the secret to the high five habit and everything you learn about in this book, all the tools. If it's simple, you'll do it. And I've also found in my work and research that if the tool is kind of cheesy at first glance, and let's face it, the 5-second rule, counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sounds kind of simple and dumb when you first hear it. High-fiving yourself in the mirror sounds kind of simple and dumb when you first hear it. High-fiving your heart, something we talked about in yesterday's live stream. In fact, you saw me use the tool high-fiving your heart to overcome a moment where I felt that wave of anxiety and overwhelm. And I use the high five to the heart, which sounds simple and kind of stupid when you first hear it. If it's simple, you can use it, especially if you're overwhelmed. And if it's kind of silly or stupid, you tend to remember it. And that's the genius of this, everybody, because tools only work when you use them. How many of you have read incredible books about tools that you can use or habits that you can change, but you've never actually implemented the change into your life because it was too complicated, or you couldn't remember what to do, or there were so many damn steps that, my God, you got just so much to do anyway that how could you possibly implement this? Tools only work. Yeah, you can read about them, but they only work when you start to use them. And so the genius of the high five habit is it is so simple. It takes less than 5 seconds. You can sneak it in between brushing your teeth and walking out of the bathroom. And if you're forgetting to do it, remember, take a little Post-it note like this one. High five, baby. Look at that. Isn't that cute? High five. This comes from my friend Kate. Hi, Kate, if you're watching over at Akamai. I stick a little Post-it on your mirror, and the Post-it with a little note or a handprint or trace your hand or write, I believe in you, something, I love you. That's a environmental trigger, little piece of science that will trigger your mind. Oh yeah, I got to high five myself before I leave. And then take your moment and do the simple high five. And remember, you don't have to say anything. The gesture alone is what triggers the chemical release in your brain and triggers your nervous system to lighten up and to give you some energy. And it also triggers your mind to start to see that you treat yourself with respect and you treat yourself like you're worthy. It's the gesture alone of the high five, thanks to a lifetime of neural association and programming that's already in your mind, body, and spirit, that explains why this so simple thing actually has profound impact on you. Our research shows that to build a new habit, it needs to be easy to add to your routine. And come on, how easy is it to put down your toothbrush and then high five yourself in the mirror? Super simple. And since it's easy and it feels really good, by doing the high five habit every day, you're going to prove to yourself that you can stick to a new behavior or a challenge. And that's what's also going to start to build some confidence. You're going to see yourself taking new actions that have a positive impact in your life. And over time, as you repeat this simple habit, it starts to have an even deeper impact in who you are and how you relate to yourself. Another question I got, this is chapter 3, everybody. We are now on page 39 of the book. I'm reading this for free. My New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Amazon, USA Today, #1 bestseller, #1 audiobook in the world right now in terms of the book sales. And we're in chapter 3, and I'm reading this for free because I want to make sure that if you can't afford a book right now, you still can benefit from the tools and science in this extraordinary discovery that I made called the high five habit. And we are in chapter 3 on page 39. And the other question I got a lot is, all right, Mel, why should I trust you? You don't have to. That's it. You don't have to trust me. Trusting me is a choice. I'm actually trying to teach you how to trust yourself. I don't want you to look at me for answers. I want you to turn back toward your own reflection in the mirror and dig deep inside yourself for the answers to the biggest questions in your life. I can give you tools to help you listen to yourself, but ultimately the truth that you need is inside of you. And that's really important because, I think it's amazing that we're here together. And I love sharing everything that I've learned that has helped me through really tough times and has also helped me become very successful and productive and happier and healthier as a person. But at the end of the day, it's your life and you've got to live with the consequences of your decisions. So everything that I'm teaching you in the high five habit
is removing layers and layers of crap that is built up inside your mind that's made you doubt yourself and feel insecure and be rattled with guilt and feel tons of anxiety. And we are clearing away all those blocks so you can start to recreate a true partnership with yourself and learn how to believe in yourself again, because that's how you will ultimately change your life. Here's another question on page 39. Hey, Mel, I've got real problems. How can the high five habit, seriously, girl, help me during tough times? Now, as you heard in chapter 2, remember Jen? She was high-fiving herself through her 5th round of chemo, and she shared in chapter 2 how she's so good about supporting everybody else and worrying about everybody else, but she has a real problem asking for help. How many of you, do you have trouble asking for help? This is so common. And at the heart of having trouble asking for help and support is you've been trained to take care of other people and not put yourself first. You've been told that you're selfish or you're a bitch or you're this or you're that if you put yourself first. And B, if you struggle with self-worth, deep down, this is really sad, you don't believe that you're worthy of it, or you assume nobody's going to help you anyway. And so you've created this habit of not asking for help or not understanding even what your needs are. You know, one of the things that my husband has recently discovered in his own therapy as he is facing really long-term depression is that for so long, he has suppressed his needs and has felt like they didn't matter, that he's not even sure what his needs are. And I think that's true for a lot of us, that we're not quite sure what our needs are or how to support ourselves. And again, the High Five Habit is a book that foundationally teaches you to reconnect with yourself and to learn how to not only be more aware of what you need, but to, in your heart and soul, know that you are deserving of what you want and need. And it's so cool when you start to have that breakthrough. I just love reading all your comments. And so, as Jen said, as she's going through her 5th round of chemo, high-fiving herself doesn't cure her cancer. So let me say it again. The high five habit will not cure her cancer. But what it does, high-fiving herself in the mirror, is it helps Jen feel encouraged, supported, and celebrated in her strength and in her resolve and her optimism as she fights the cancer. And the same goes for any difficulty you're facing. You need to high-five yourself through it. Lauren wrote, Mel, I'm a single mom, and in the past year, I lost one of my very closest friends to suicide. That's happened in my life too many times, too. Losing people to despair, addiction, depression, mental illness. That's what suicide is. It's a disease of hopelessness. And, as I was walking away from a relationship that was not good for me, I struggled with feelings of sadness, feelings of being unsuccessful and not enough. And every time I see a mirror, I now give myself a high five. I do it to remind myself that I am alive and worthy to get out there and grab my dreams, mostly to inspire my daughters to live their lives happily with authenticity, to know that they are enough no matter what life throws at them. Or maybe you're dealing with a difficulty at work. It's not cancer. It's not losing somebody you love. It's not going through a massive breakup. Maybe work right now is really, really difficult for you. Kendra said, my company hasn't been netting sales, but I still high-fived myself daily to stay encouraged. And Brene wrote, I finished a project today I've been working on and struggling through for a month. As I looked at my final product, I was amazed and proud of my work. I handed the project over to my head with my head held high and a smile on my face. Now, the feedback I got on my work, it's okay. It's a start. Now, typically, I would spend the rest of this day bashing myself, doubting myself, overthinking, shutting down. Not this time. Something in me forced me to go to the mirror, high-five myself, and now I am rewarding my hard work with some me time today. That's right. It's hard to get feedback, especially when you've put a lot of work in. And part of the art of learning how to grow is being able to put all your hard work into something and then either get feedback that's like, oh, I still have a lot to do, or to fail at something you've put all this hard work in, and know that you can still high five yourself through that feedback or through that failure to double down and know that, hey, I'm proud of the effort that I put in. And now I know that with this feedback or what I learned during the failure, I can apply it to what I'm working on, and I can actually do even better. That's how high-fiving yourself through something changes your life. For those of you just joining us, I'm Mel Robbins. I'm reading from my instant bestseller, New York Times bestseller, #2 selling book on Amazon, on all of Amazon last week, the #1 selling audiobook in the world last week and today. It's called The High Five Habit. You've made it an instant bestseller. And because I want the tools in this book that are so transformational and life-changing and simple and grounded in science to be accessible to everybody, I'm reading it cover to cover for free. So today we're on chapter 3. We are on page 40. For those of you who would like to follow along, we're on page 40. And please tag friends that can't afford the book. Please share this on your social media pages so we can teach the world the high five habit. If you can't afford a book, please get yourself a copy of this. And if you have teams, or if you have colleagues or friends that could use the high five habit and could use the science of knowing how to believe in yourself again, how to tap into that positive life force inside of you and that confidence inside of you to go take control of your life, send them a high five by buying them a copy. I promise you, it will be one of the greatest gifts you could ever give somebody, because you are giving them the gift of believing in themselves again. Like those kids who do the high five in the research study, chapter 2 is all research, everybody. In the face of failure and challenge, that encouragement and partnership with yourself is exactly what you need. The high five reminds you that you can face whatever it is that you're going through. And it reminds you that you do have the resilience, the stamina, and the strength and the courage to meet this moment in your life and to come out on the other side. The high five also acknowledges how hard you're working. Just like a teammate would support you in the biggest play of your life, you can support yourself with a daily high five that says, you know what? It's hard, but you can handle this. You know what? These problems blow, but I still got your back. You know what? We got a lot to do today, and I'm going to be here supporting you. You know what? I don't deserve what's happening right now, but I can face it. That's what the high five habit does when you're dealing with problems right now. You high five your way through it. Well, Mel, what if I don't feel like doing it? Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Part of the reason why you don't have what you want in your life is because when you don't feel like doing something, you don't do it. Your life only gets easier when you do the hard things all the time. So push through your resignation, push through your weirdness, and practice the high five habit every morning after you brush your teeth. If you're sitting there on the fence about buying this book, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, buy the book. You need this. Every human being needs this. This is the book the world needs right now. And if you don't believe me, go read the reviews. They are jaw-dropping and profound. And they are from real people around the world, just like you, who literally have devoured the book the day they got it because it was so life-changing. So please get yourself a copy. Your life only gets easier when you do the things that you are resisting. Read what Paula had to say after she started doing the high five, because her realization, honestly, it's common and it's heartbreaking. And I think it's why people don't feel like high-fiving themselves. And that's why I wanted to share Paula's testimonial with you. Mel, it's hard for me to cheer for myself because I resent anyone with the audacity to love themselves. It sounds crazy, but it's like, will I even be likable if I like myself? I mean, aren't women who tout their achievements bitches? I hate women who constantly tout themselves, but they're also the very people I admire. The founders, the workouters, the travelers. I don't feel capable, not because my dreams are outlandish, but because I feel like there are so many people who deserve it more, mostly because they'll cheer hard for themselves. So it's much easier to applaud the people who are ahead of me than it is to cheer for myself. It's easier to stay in the shadows than it is to go for gold and fall flat. It would be just more proof that I'm not good enough. And I have enough evidence of that. Wow. When you read this quote, you can feel Paula's pain. How many of you can relate to Paula? That, if you go for your dreams and you fall flat on your face, it's just going to be proof that you're not good enough, and you already have too much evidence of that. You can feel Paula's desire. She wants to be seen. She wants to be celebrated. She wants to feel worthy. If holding yourself back is a habit, it's time to break it and learn how to start cheering yourself forward. Right now, Paula's dreams are haunting her. And I'm sure your dreams are haunting you too. Paula longs to live a high five life. She wants to go for the gold. Now, when you read this, you can see how your own thoughts can keep you stuck in a very low place. And when you cannot give what you desire to yourself, you absolutely will resent those who can. And the high five habit is the first step to clearing that block away and changing this, giving yourself permission to have what you actually desire. In fact, in the later chapters of the book, particularly, I believe it's like chapter 9, we're going to talk about jealousy. We're going to talk about how these feelings of insecurity and unworthiness block you from allowing yourself to even want the things that you deserve in life. And that by high-fiving yourself through these feelings, you can start to reprogram your mind and treat yourself in a way so that you know that you deserve to be happy. You know that you are worthy of these things. You know that when you fail or fall on your face, it's not evidence that you're not good enough. It's actually evidence that you're trying. And that's going to make you more confident. Question, isn't a high five only for when there's something to celebrate? How many of you feel like, well, wait, do I high five myself when I do something? Sure, but I actually think you get a high five just for breathing. See, encouraging yourself every step of the way is the secret formula for winning in life. One of the most rewarding parts of running or walking a road race is that people line up and cheer for you every step of the way. Learning how to do that for yourself, whether you cross the finish line or not, will build your confidence faster than any medal or accomplishment ever could. It's interesting. I had this insight when the high five habit was named to the New York Times bestseller list. My first reaction was I was thrilled. My second reaction is I actually started crying because I was number 2 and not number 1. And that's a very common reaction based on science, because when you're number 2, you immediately feel like you were this close to being number 1. And so your brain focuses on that sort of perceived gap. Research shows that if you're number 3, you're just as happy as number 1, believe it or not, because you're not thinking, oh, I could have been 1. You're like, oh, thank God, this is amazing. I'm here. And then I literally woke up the next morning super proud and excited again. And here's a big insight that I had. I've always dreamt of being a New York Times bestselling author, and achieving that goal did not feel like I thought it would feel. In fact, it proved something. Achieving your goals and dreams won't make you happy. Working on them will. It's the journey, everybody. It's the pursuit. It's having a cool game to play. It's being up to something that makes you feel like your life has meaning. And so, that doesn't diminish the fact that I absolutely earned my spot on the New York Times list. That doesn't take away from that at all. But it was a huge reminder that so much about your happiness and a sense of meaning and purpose is anchored in whether or not you are playing a fun game in life right now. Are you up to something that makes you want to get out of bed? Do you have a goal that you're working on that pulls you out of your comfort zone? That is the secret to meaning and to purpose, is to simply setting goals and going for it. Whether you succeed or fail is beside the point. It's the pursuit of it and high-fiving yourself through it that makes you feel empowered and fulfilled. Well, what if I feel like a failure right now? This is a big question. This is on the bottom of page 41. Well, if your self-esteem is in the gutter, then you abso-freaking-lutely need to high-five yourself. You need it right now, and you deserve it. And you've always needed it, by the way. Starting from the very first moment, your life has been a trial by fire. You answer a question wrong and everybody laughs. You speak your mind at the dinner table and you get sent to your room. You try out for the football team and you get cut. You think someone is your friend and they ditch you. You apply for a promotion and get passed over. You trust somebody and they hurt you. You run for office and you lose. You fall in love and you get your heart broken. You start a business and it goes bankrupt. You achieve a dream and then you start to feel lost again. I can relate to all of those, can't you? We perceive these as failures, but they're not. They're just life. These are lessons. Like steel, your confidence, resilience, and wisdom, they are forged in fire. Your life is always teaching you something if you're willing to look at it that way. So why not reward yourself not only when you win, but also when you fail spectacularly? I mean, until recently, I had this whole thing reversed. I used to be the kind of person who held out the reward until I achieved the goal. And I was hard on myself every step of the way. I realize now how much harder I was making it on myself to both be happy, to feel fulfilled, to enjoy my life as I was up to a big game. What I've learned is that failures almost always lead to something amazing down the road. In fact, there's a whole chapter about this mindset. This is preparing me for something amazing that hasn't happened yet. I can't wait for you to read that chapter. The high five habit will help you pick yourself back up when it feels like life is knocking you down. And you need to, because you have the strength within you, and you're going to need it to knock right back when the time is right. Okay, page 42. Mel, I'm ready to start the high five habit. What's the best way to begin and to remember to do it? Excellent question. First of all, get a copy of the book, The High Five Habit. Read it cover to cover. Come back to it, highlight it, underline it. You need to understand it, because then you're going to use the high five habit in the mirror, the high five to the heart, and all the tools in this book to change your life every day. But I've also got something called the High Five Challenge. What is the High Five Challenge? It's simple. It's free. It's 5 days. And you're going to, for 5 days, start your day by high-fiving yourself in the mirror. That's it. And here's the coolest part. You don't take this challenge alone. You and I are going to do the challenge together with 121,000 other people from 90 countries. That's how many people have signed up for and completed the High Five Challenge. 121,000 people from 90 countries. And their results are extraordinary. If you've taken the High Five Challenge, or you're currently in the High Five Challenge, will you tell everybody what you're getting out of the High Five Challenge? Every day, you literally watch a video training from me, you journal, you then share what you're learning after you journal in the comments, you upload a selfie, you cheer for other people. It's extraordinary. And it's going on at high5challenge.com. That's high, the number 5, challenge.com. For 5 days, you're going to be part of a global online community of people who are all taking the High Five Challenge together. Every morning, you get an email with a link to a video pep talk that's going to teach you something, inspire you, go deeper into the research in this book and the changes that you're going to experience. You'll also be able to track your progress and connect with and cheer for other people. And even cooler, those same people are going to cheer for you back. Look, here are some of the people. How cool is that? You know, it's so awesome when you know that you're not alone. And in just a second, we're going to be done with chapter 3. And I'm going to take a few questions, okay? So while you may be alone in your bathroom, high-fiving yourself, when you join us at high5challenge.com, you won't feel alone, because you're not going to be alone. There's 121,000 other people in there with you. And the best part, it's free. There are no strings attached. When the challenge is done, you will still be able to log into the challenge. You don't have to buy anything if you don't want to. You do not have to do anything. You can take the challenge, be done with Mel Robbins thereafter, but the High Five Challenge for 5 days straight is yours for free, thanks to me and my friends at a company called Growth Day, which is offering it up on a platform so we don't have to be in a Facebook group. Isn't that awesome? Research tells us that it's a whole lot easier to change when you feel support and encouragement from other people. The fact is, you are not alone. People around the world are waking up every day and doing this challenge with you. So take a minute, go to high5challenge.com and get registered for free. After just 5 days, you'll be surprised by how different you feel. Fran said, I must say it hits different every time I high five myself. I can feel something heal a little more. I believe a little more. This is day 5 of high fiving myself and being transformed by the renewal of my mind. Now that's a movement. My friends and family started doing it as well. And now I see that I can make a profound difference in the world. 5 days. Give me 5 lousy days, everybody. It's highfivechallenge.com. I realize that's backwards on Instagram and out of focus on every other platform, but we're trying. Finally, Mel, can the high five habit create lasting change? Yes. And the high five in the mirror is just the beginning. In the remainder of this book, you're going to learn a dozen more ways to give yourself the encouragement and support you need. And as you practice using these tools to flip yourself from a place of being stuck into a state of taking action, you'll experience even cooler things related to confidence, happiness, and fulfillment. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation for everything in your life. How you talk to and treat yourself sets the tone for everything you do. It determines how you feel, what you think, and what actions you take. If you look in the mirror and don't see a person worth celebrating, you need to change that. The bottom line is you have a lifetime of positive association with a high five because you've been doing it for strangers, friends, and teammates your entire life. The neural association is in your brain. The programming, everybody, is already there. We're just teaching you to tap into it to change your life by making it a habit to look yourself in the mirror and high five yourself every single day. It will change the patterns that are stored in your subconscious, the patterns that are relate to you, the patterns associated with your mindset and your outlook and your motivation and your optimism and your confidence. And that will improve your mood. It will help you achieve your goals. And fundamentally, the high five habit and the tools in this book will shift the trajectory of your entire life because it shifts everything about how you relate to, see, and treat yourself. That's the secret. Page 49, and this is going to address what I'm talking about. Why it's so important to catch when your thinking drags you down. Why it's so important to put a stop on how long you're going to wallow in your misery and feel sorry for yourself, and how to flip yourself back into a high five attitude. All right, page 49. We're right here, everybody, where it says your subconscious won't say I love you. You want to see your negative thought patterns in action? This is the patterns that are stored in your self-conscious, because what we've been discussing, everybody, is how you have a habit of rejecting yourself. You have a habit of criticizing yourself. You have a habit of being hard on yourself. And we are breaking that habit and replacing it with a new habit called the high five habit. So if you want to see your self-rejection in action, just look at yourself in a mirror or pay attention to what you do when somebody tries to take your picture. Now, my kids used to tease me because every time I looked in the mirror, they said I made a very weird mirror face. And I didn't even know I was doing it. And here's the thing, everybody, including you, has a mirror face. What is a mirror face? Well, that's when you look in the mirror and then subconsciously within a nanosecond, you literally fix your face in order to appear more attractive. Why do we do this? I'll tell you why we do it. Because we don't like what we look like. It's a form of rejecting yourself. And if you don't realize you do it, just watch your teenagers or any teenagers in your life. They all have a mirror face. It's what they call their good side. You know how when you try to take a family photo and your kids now move you around like a prop in a photo, and this one wants to be on this side with the elbow out, and that one's got to do this and kind of lean their face like that. That's what I'm talking about right here. Subconscious. We all do it. Or if you're somebody that really hates what you look like, I bet you hide in the back of the photo. You make somebody block your body. This is another subconscious form of self rejection. My mirror face involves an ever so slight puckering of the lips, and I suck in my cheeks. I kind of do this thing where I'm like I kind of like elongate my chin, which I don't know why I elongate my chin, because I really don't care for how pointy my chin is. But like I kind of, you see how I go sucking in right there. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then my kids, literally, this is so mean. They would start to mercilessly, I can't even pronounce the word. It's so mean. They would relentlessly tease me. If there was a photo where I had the, kind of thing right there, my kids would be like, oh, mirror face. If we walked past a mirror and I looked at myself, I go, and I didn't even realize, mirror face, Mom. And then I'd be like, what am I doing? I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know that I'm doing it. I'm sorry. Now, I'm proud to say that I have actually not done the mirror face in months. In fact, it kind of was hard for me to do that. I had to like pull it in a little bit. It's sort of like I've gotten Botox right here probably for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. When they go squint like this, I don't even know how to do it anymore, because by getting Botox, it's relaxed these little muscles here, and I don't even know how to scrunch them anymore. But my mirror face is the same thing. The high five habit has made me change the programming in my mind. You see, when I look in the mirror now, you guys, I actually don't see what I don't like. I don't see the stuff I need to fix. I see a human being that I care about. How cool is that? I don't see a face that needs, I can't even do it. I don't even know I don't even know what I was doing as a mirror face. There is so much compassion, acceptance, and understanding with practicing the high five habit. It literally rewires your mind and your habits. I see not my appearance, I see me, Mel Robbins, the person, the human being. And that's what's going to happen for you. How many of you know what I'm talking about because you've been practicing the high five habit? That you are literally experiencing a complete rewiring of your mind. You're experiencing a completely transformed relationship with yourself, that it used to suck to look in the mirror. And now you have this completely different relationship standing in front of the mirror with the human being you see standing there looking back at you. Well, here's what science tells us about mirror face, everybody. We all have automatic thoughts, things we think so often that they become the default, like a rut in a path. If you deliberately change your actions or thoughts, you change your default way of thinking and acting. Now, this deliberate change is called a neuroplastic response. And right now, your default thinking and mirror face are making you hyper focus on what's wrong with you or what you think is wrong with you. And here's the good news, you can change it. I want to give you a couple other examples, because when we were researching what's called a neuroplastic response, one of the gals that I work with, Tracy, found this really incredible research. And for whatever reason, I was like, nah, we don't need to put it in the book, but I feel like I want to tell it to you right now so that you understand that neuroplastic responses to your appearance, to your body, they are hardwired in your mind. So for example, if you're somebody that's really struggled with weight, okay, and whether it's because you have put on a lot of weight or because you are just larger in your build, and you have these habits that you've adopted of whether it's, I always like to be in the back of the photo because I don't want people to see my body. That's a neuroplastic response. Another thing is if you're a larger build and you have to kind of turn to get through some doorways, what they found based on research is the neuroplastic response of turning sideways or trying to kind of scoop your stomach so you can slide into a chair or a bench as you sit into a table. Even after you lose weight, what researchers have found is that behavior in relation to your body and how you perceive yourself is still there. So even after folks, go through these massive transformations and start to lose weight, they'll still turn sideways when they go through a doorway because of the neuroplastic response. We also see this with very tall people. So my brother, for example, is 6'5", and he's a super tall guy. And there are lots of doorways that he's got to kind of duck to get under. Well, what's interesting is even in doorways that are large, you can still see him do this because of his height, even though he doesn't have to. That's a neuroplastic response. Are you guys starting to get this? This idea that there are ways in which you have responded to your height, to your weight, to your appearance, to your identity that have become hardwired in your brain. And what we want to attack is we want to attack the neuroplastic response that you have to yourself that's negative. That neuroplastic response that is like, I'm a bad person. Or my daughter yesterday, nothing ever works out for me. This is going to be nothing works out for me. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, there's a lot that works out for you? I don't know what you're talking about. But her neuroplastic response is nothing works out for me. And it's simply in there because she's repeated the thought so many times. I used to have the exact same thought, by the way. The high five habit has erased it. It gets triggered by certain situations, but it's not the default anymore. Isn't this exciting, everybody? That you can identify what your neuroplastic response is related to your identity or how you think about yourself or how life is going. And we can break that neuroplastic response apart so that the response that you have to your face, to your body, to your identity actually matches what you want to feel instead of the patterns that you're just used to thinking and feeling. I freaking love this. Don't you love this?
So here's what you're going to feel. Yeah. When you do it, it's very simple. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror and you're going to leverage some research out of Harvard.
We'll talk about that too. Yeah, okay. I want to dive into that.
So you're basically just going to look at yourself in the mirror and you're going to ask yourself, what does that human being need from me today? How can I show up for him or her or they? How do I do that today? Kindness? Do I need to be more courageous or bold? You kind of set this intention for yourself. And then you're simply going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. Now, a couple things I want you to expect. Number one, it will feel weird, period. It feels weird for everybody because it is the opposite of what you're doing right now. And so your brain is going to reject it as odd. Number two, you're either going to have one of two reactions. That's it. There's no middle ground. You will either have a very profound positive experience where you're going to laugh, probably because it kind of feels good and it's kind of silly, or you're going to burst into tears in a positive way because it's a release that you have finally woken up and started supporting yourself. You just got it. And that's where the tears come from. But more likely, although maybe not for you because you're a fan of this podcast, but more likely you will feel resistance. And the resistance is the dust on the mirror. Every single morning, Jay, we bring with us our entire past. Whatever's been done to you, whether it's trauma or discrimination or abuse or neglect or abandonment, it is standing between you and the mirror. It's the dust. And you see that dust and you say, that means that I am not worthy. I am not lovable. So you see a human being that's distorted and you say to yourself, because of what's happened, I don't deserve a high five. Or if you're a human being, you've done a ton of stuff that you regret. And so all the things that wish you could change, that you would forgive Jay or you'd forgive Mel Robbins for, you cannot forgive yourself. It's more dust. And so you stand there and you say, because of all that stuff that I did, I'm unworthy or I'm unlovable or I'm this or I'm that. And that dust keeps you from seeing a human being who deserves support and celebration. Or another form of the dust, which is the resistance, is that you actually believe that you do not deserve to be celebrated or supported unless you have the bank account or the number on the scale or you drive in the car or live in the neighborhood or your hair is less kinky or you're this or you're that. And so you withhold the very support and celebration that you need in order to change your life from you because you haven't done it yet. That's where the resistance comes from. And so I'm here to say you got to try this for 5 days because it's going to feel weird. You're going to resist it. And what's going to happen is you'll notice as you raise your hand, and this is where the science gets amazing. As you raise your hand, Jay, you will go from thinking this is weird or thinking this is stupid to silence. And this is explained by science. There is a field of study called neurobics. Neurobics is a word that I did not invent. It is aerobic or physical movement with new neural pathway development. And research has shown that when you use neurobics, it is the fastest way to form new neural pathways. So the way that you do it is you take an unexpected physical movement, like high-fiving yourself, something you've never done, and you marry it with a thought. Now, here's where things get crazy cool. You've been high-fiving people your whole life. You've been receiving high fives your whole life. So, Jay, when you high-five somebody, what are you communicating through the gesture?
A feeling of connectedness, a feeling of support, a feeling of I'm congratulating you or celebrating you, a feeling of you've got this, like that kind of feeling.
Yeah, completely. All of it is programmed in your subconscious brain. Mm-hmm. When you go to raise your hand to high-five somebody, I can never high-five Jay and go, you're a jerk. Jay, I don't like you. Jay, I hope your tea, which I'm a founding club member of, really fails. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Because the programming is already in your brain.
Yes.
So you cannot look at yourself in the mirror and think terrible things while you're high-fiving yourself because your brain won't allow it.
Right.
It is programmed to think something different. And as you repeat this every day, just 5 days, dear God, give me 5 days of doing this, you will override the critic and you will reprogram your mind to associate belief, love, encouragement, support, resilience with your own reflection. This is why I don't even see myself in terms of a body anymore. I see a human being that I love, that I support, just like I would a friend or a child that I love unconditionally. It's mind-blowing, but that's not all. So I talked to our pal, Dr. Daniel Amen, and this isn't even in the book. This is just something I learned 2 weeks ago. He went bananas when I talked about this thing. So Jay, when you high-five somebody else, your brain drips dopamine. Mm-hmm. The reason why when you do this, even on a low morning, you get a boost in your mood and a little bit of clarity.
Wow.
Is you get a drip of dopamine by high-fiving yourself.
Wow.
Again, because the programming is already in your brain. You're just now turning it from everybody else and giving it to yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a second thing that's super cool. So Dr. Amen was explaining, he said, Mel, when you leave the bathroom, you feel kind of peppy, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of weird. He said, well, let me tell you what that is. He said, your nervous system is encoded with celebratory energy. When you wave hello, you're raising your arms. When you cross a finish line, you raise your arms. When you hug somebody, you raise your arms. When you high-five somebody, you raise your arms. When you do this every morning, especially when you're going through a challenging moment, your nervous system recognizes the celebratory gesture and gives you a jolt of energy. Mm. Is that not incredible?
It's incredible.
The coolest thing about the high five is this. First of all, I am demanding that you try it, especially if you think it's stupid as hell. I want you to stand in front of the mirror. Number one, because research out of Harvard says taking a moment of reflection with yourself in the morning and setting an intention changes your productivity, it changes your neurochemistry, it changes how you show up for the day, it changes everything. That's number one. Number two, you have a lifetime of looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing what you hate. I want to change that. When you raise your hand and high-five your own reflection, because you have been raising your hand and high-fiving other people for your entire life, it is already programmed into your subconscious. All of that shit that's positive. I believe in you. We got this. Come on, shake it off. Let's get going. Here we go. I see you. I hear you. I celebrate you. All that stuff you've been doing for other people, when you raise that hand, the subconscious part of your brain kicks in and it overrides all of the negative stuff you think. You cannot stand in front of that mirror, Rich, and go, God, I look fat, and high-five yourself. It's impossible. Your brain can't do it.
Right.
You also can't think about work emails. You also can't think about what's stressing you out. And here's the thing that I also love about it. So this is a field of study called neurobics. You're marrying physical movement with a change in thought. The other thing that
It's like neurology aerobics.
It is.
Basically.
It's exactly what it is.
I found that part of the book fascinating. Yeah. I mean, I think, look, you're taking this very simple action that we all associate with positive things that's backed up by, the neurochemistry, with this mirror work, which has a tradition in psychology in the field of like cultivating self-love. It's not like the idea of looking in the mirror and doing the Stuart Smalley thing. Like there's science and research behind this.
Yeah.
To cultivate appreciation for the self.
Yes. And so there's even more here. So the other stuff that's super cool about this is that, we've all bought into this lie that somehow beating yourself up and tough love and being hard on yourself is motivating. Wrong. All the research shows that it is demotivating. If you're somebody that's stuck, if you're somebody that has regrets, if you're somebody that is tired of where you are, if you feel like, why can't I change? Beating yourself up is making it worse. You have to learn how to cheer for yourself where you are. Because if you're not, you will never find the motivation to change. So they did this study with kids where they broke kids into 3 different groups, okay? And they gave the kids very challenging problems. And they wanted to know what was going to be the thing that researchers could do to motivate and inspire kids to work through a challenging problem. And what is going to be the most effective thing that we could do to give somebody that boost that you need to really face something that's hard. So group number 1 got the old fixed mindset praise, where it's like, hey, you're super smart, Rich. Hey, Rich, you're really good looking in those glasses, and I bet they help you make you focus on this problem. Keep going, buddy. The second group got the fixed mindset praise, which is, hey, Rich, you're really, really working hard. Rich, that perseverance is amazing. Keep going. The third group, they got a simple high five. No words, just a high five. The group with the simple high five outperformed the other 2 group and then some.
That's
why?
So crazy.
Why? I'll tell you why. A high five is fulfilling your fundamental emotional needs. It's not about the problem. When you high five somebody, including yourself, you are affirming that somebody exists. You are saying, I see you. And you're celebrating with them. You know how those things go viral all year long of teachers standing outside their classroom doing individual handshakes with kids? It's the same thing. Every one of those kids is being seen as an individual and celebrated.
There's also that study of the NBA teams, right?
Yes.
Where they basically looked at how many high fives all the teams were doling out.
Fist bumps, yeah, touching.
And the teams that were giving out the most high fives were the highest performing teams.
Yes, and
that's crazy.
The teams that had the least amount of contact like that, of fist bumps and high fives and back taps, performed the worst. Why? Because you're building trust with whomever you're high fiving. You see, when you stand in front of the mirror and instead of going, God, my jowls look like saddlebags and I'm fucked today because my to-do list is so long and, and I shouldn't have had that, that sets your mind and your day on a certain course.
Yeah.
When you walk into the bathroom and you habit stack this simple high five along with brushing your teeth, you are starting your day by fulfilling your most important needs. You see yourself, you affirm yourself, you celebrate yourself. And for those of you that feel stuck, part of your problem is you are withholding that shit from yourself until you get to the number of the scale. Until you get that job, until you do the thing you're supposed to do. And what you are doing is backwards. You need support, celebration, and acknowledgement now in order to hit that number on the scale. You see, most of us believe we're not worthy of celebration until we achieve something. And I'm here to tell you, if you start celebrating, supporting yourself as you are every single day, it will become a part of who you are, which empowers and equips you to face the shitty things. And more importantly, empowers and equips you to do the things that scare you that you need to do.
The motivational power of a high five has been well documented. In fact, wait until you hear what researchers discovered about high fives when studying the best way to motivate kids in the face of challenging tasks. In one study, school-age kids were split into 3 groups and asked to complete difficult tasks. Then the researchers gave them one of 3 different forms of encouragement. The kids were either praised for a trait, and that's like when you're like, hey, you're so smart, you're so talented. That was one group. Or the second group, the kids were told that they were working really hard and they were praised for their effort. You're really dedicated. Or the third group of kids that were working on this challenging task, they were simply given a high five. And the high five in this documented academic research study was hands down the best motivator. Here's why. The kids who were working on a challenging problem, who were told that they were smart, talented, or skilled, were actually the least motivated, and they had the least amount of fun. The kids who were praised for their effort showed greater enjoyment and exhibited a higher level of persistence. But it was the kids who got the simple high five that blew the researchers' minds. The kids who got the high five felt the most positive about themselves and their efforts. And check this out. They kept going for the longest. Persistence, people, despite making mistakes. In fact, the results were so clear that the researchers titled this academic study, High Fives Motivate, when they published it in the academic journal Frontiers in Psychology. Researchers concluded that giving a high five to somebody is what they called a shared celebration. Holding up your hand with a big smile on your face are two instantly recognizable signs of genuine pride and encouragement. A high five means you are celebrating with the other person. You are passing your energy to them. That is so different from offering just, hey, good job, keep going. When you get a high five, you feel seen and affirmed as a person. It's true, isn't it? Like, let's practice this right now. I'm gonna high five you. You ready? So as you're watching me on whatever platform you're watching me on, here we go. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to smile because I believe in you. And I know things are challenging right now, but I want you to know that I have your back. And so I'm giving you a high five. Right there. A high five to you. And I bet you felt affirmed. You felt seen. You felt a little shift in energy, didn't you? That's the science here. You see, your brain recognizes this. I'm celebrating you. I am. That's why I'm raising my hand. Your brain's like, oh, here comes a high five. Drip of dopamine, little jolt of energy. You felt it right then, didn't you? You can actually manufacture that for yourself in your own body. That's why this is so cool. And, here's the other thing. When you get a high five, you feel seen and affirmed, not for your skills, not for your effort, not for your grades. You are being praised and recognized for just being you. I don't even know where you are in the world right now. I don't know what you're wearing, what you're doing, what you're facing. And here, when I do this to you, you feel that I see you. I love this. I see my fiance and I high five each other now each morning in the bathroom. We high fives ourselves, and it really does boost our mood. That's incredible. That's incredible. My mood has been great this week because of the high five on day 4 of the high five challenge and it's unbelievable. I'm starting to think about all the things I've accomplished in my life that I don't give myself credit for. I love, love, love that y'all are trying this, that you're enjoying it, that you're buying a copy of this book for your friends. This is fantastic. Repeating mantras and statements like I love you can be powerful. So this goes to your question, do I need to say anything when I high five myself? We're going to get into this. I'm recommending no. I'm recommending that you do the high five and you don't say anything for 5 days, that you look at yourself and you just be with yourself and you high five yourself and send yourself into the day, okay? That's what I'm recommending. Then you can start to put little notes of affirmation on your mirror. You can start to add in a mantra that you want to work on with the high five, but let's just do it in silence first so you can feel the power and the science of this thing, okay? Repeating mantras and statements like I love myself can be powerful, but research proves that unless you believe the mantra you're saying, your mind actually rejects the mantra you're saying. So in chapter 7, we dig way into this, and you're going to learn how to create what's called meaningful mantras. Those are positive statements that your mind can embrace. This is also why a high five is so amazing. Your mind won't reject it because it's always associated the high five with believing in the person that you're giving it to. Plus, a high five isn't passive, it's not verbal. When you give yourself a high five, you are actually demonstrating to your own brain, hey, I'm the kind of person that cheers for me. I'm the kind of person that believes in myself. I'm the kind of person that's nice to myself. It's a physical act of joining in with yourself and acknowledging yourself and trusting yourself. As Bridget found when she started practicing this habit each day, this is what Bridget said. It's one thing to say positive things to yourself in your mind. It's a whole nother thing to act the feeling out. It gives it more meaning. How many of you have felt that? That it's one thing to try to stand in front of the mirror and be like, okay, I love myself, and it doesn't really hit. But when you act out the behavior of self-love, it's a totally different feeling, everybody. It gives it more meaning. It bolsters the action, and it helps you truly believe in yourself and your worth. Actions speak louder than words. I think we're going to stop there because we'll read one more thing, and then we're going to end. Do we have time, or do I need to bolt? Okay, one more thing. We're on page 22 for those of you following along in chapter 2. It's all about the science, okay? This is one of the people that, I've done almost 53 podcast interviews, everybody. And one of the studies that people ask me about the most is this study with NBA teams here in the United States and the power of a high five to create a winning team. And so pay attention to this, okay? If you manage a team, if you want to impact your family, pay attention to the research around high fives and winning teams in the NBA. A high five also helps you build trust in yourself and your ability to win in life. University of California, Berkeley researchers studied NBA players' habits of success. At the beginning of a season, they recorded how often players gave each other high fives and other signs of encouragement, like fist bumps. Using the number of high fives during the game at the beginning of the season, the researchers then predicted which teams would have the best records at the end of the season. You want to know something? The best NBA teams, those who made it to the championships, were the ones who gave the most high fives at the start of the season. Why are high fives such good predictors of a positive outcome? Well, it comes down to trust. The teams who high-fived one another in the preseason were constantly lifting each other up. The physical touch says, I got your back. Let's go. We got this. It helps you shake off a bad play or a missed shot. It lifts your mood. It communicates confidence. And it reminds you that no matter where we're at in this game, we can still win because a high five is always optimistic, right? The team that high fives one another believes in each other and their ability as a team to win. They played like they trusted each other. The unspoken power they shared helped them become unstoppable. Now, here's the interesting part. The worst teams in the NBA barely touched. They had terrible body languages, no high fives, no fist bumps, no pats on the back, nada. And it showed. They constantly made selfish, inefficient plays, and their records reflected it. Even if a team has good players, that's not enough to win. When you are high-fived through every moment of practice, through the whole season, and right to winning a championship, what it does is it creates a feeling and a culture of celebration and encouragement. It makes you give it your all selflessly. That's the feeling you need. And you can create that partnership with yourself practicing the high five habit. Because when you stand in your bathroom every single morning and you look yourself in the eye, because there's another human being in there with you. There's a human being in the mirror. Stop calling it a reflection. That is a human being staring back at you. That is your partner in life. The two of you are a team. I think the human being in the mirror represents your soul and your spirit and your humanity and your hopes and your dreams. And you need to wake up and start to cheer for that person. I want you, just like the best, winningest championship NBA teams do, I want you to send yourself into the game of life every day, creating partnership with the human being in the mirror, knowing that no matter what happens today, you've got your own back. You believe that you are strong enough to face it. You believe you're playing a game in this life of yours that's worth winning. You believe that you can, through encouragement, through support, and through celebration, face whatever happens and still win. And I believe that too. Okay, so, this is kind of my brand of advice. It's got to be incredibly stupid on the surface.
Yeah.
It's got to be so simple, it's really implausible that it works. And once you start unpacking it, it has to have a crazy bananas amount of scientific proof and real life proof in people's lives to prove why it works.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the story first behind the high five habit, because I did not set out and go like, oh, okay, I've written the 5-second rule book. I need to come up with another 5. I have been toiling away with what book to write for nearly 5 years.
Yes.
So it's been 5 years since I've had a book in print. And I had this random morning where there's a lot going on in my life. I'm not going to get into it because it's a boring story, but I was just having a really hard time in my life. And I woke up, got out of bed, I made my bed like I always do. I walked into the bathroom, I'm standing there brushing my teeth, and I catch my reflection in the mirror. And my first thought is, God, you look like hell. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I know women in particular can relate to this, but what a lot of people don't realize is you guys are incredibly hard on yourselves too. And so as I go, God, you look like hell, I start then cataloging all of the things that are wrong with my appearance. I'm like, your gray hair is coming in, you've got stripes on your neck, one of your boobs is lower than the other, you look exhausted. And then as soon as you have a negative thought or a self-criticism, it's sort of like lint in a dryer. Once you start collecting it, it just keeps on collecting it. So now I'm thinking not about how horrible I look or how tired I look. Now I start thinking about all the stuff I need to do. I start going, oh my gosh, I got up a little too late and I've got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. I don't even have a bra on yet. The dog needs to be walked. And I could feel my energy going down. Like I just felt the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed, uncertain. It doesn't even matter what was going on in my life at that time, because I think it's a universal feeling to feel overwhelmed by your life at times.
Yes.
And so here I am, a motivational speaker.
Unmotivated.
Unmotivated, uncaffeinated, no bra on, standing there in my underwear with my dog at my feet. I don't know what came over me. But as cheesy as it sounds, I just raised my hand and gave the tired, haggard woman in the mirror a high five. And it didn't change my life like right then and there, but something shifted. Like I felt a little lighter. I felt like I wasn't alone. I felt like, okay, this moment in your life is hard, but you can do this, Mel. And I went on with my day. So the second day, I woke up, and this is when things started to really kind of churn in my mind. The first thing that I noticed was this. So I wake up, Lewis, and I make my bed. And I realized I was looking forward to that moment in the mirror where I was going to see myself. Now, look, I'm 52 years old. I will probably have a hot flash during the middle of this interview at some point. I'm a lot older than you.
Just don't eat lobster.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know. I had a really allergic reaction the last time we were together. Wow. But I have spent the first 45 years of my life either criticizing the woman in the mirror or ignoring her. And this was the first time that I could remember that I was actually looking forward to seeing myself. Sort of like, when I was coming here today, you and I are very good friends. As I was walking into the building, I'm feeling excited to see you. And it wasn't like I was feeling excited to see myself. Like, I'm not like, yeah, because I got a lot of crap going on in my life. But I felt a little bit like I'm about to see a friend. And so that second morning, I high-fived myself again. And again, I feel something shift. I feel just a little lightness in the mood, and I go on with my day. So the third morning, I do it again. And again, like lightness. And so I keep doing it. A couple weeks go by. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit of momentum. And I'm really enjoying it. I have no idea what the hell is going on. I haven't even done this in front of my husband, Chris, yet, because let's be honest. Standing in front of a mirror.
High-fiving yourself.
Yeah, like, come on, how pathetic does it get? You're like, you're like that bad? So I snap a photo of myself. I've got my retainer in. I got bed head. Like, I'm not looking glamorous. I did not expect this to be the photo that would ignite a movement. Mm-hmm. And within an hour, I posted on my story on Instagram. Within an hour, at least 100 people tagged me. All over the world. People high-fiving the mirror with their kids. People on a submarine high-fiving it in the military. People MMA, like just... And I thought, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not the only one that needs a little boost in the morning. Maybe I'm not the only one who feels alone. Maybe I'm not the only one that is missing a sense of encouragement and control and confidence in an overwhelming moment in my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something here. And then the messages started to come in. Whoa, Mel, like I have been using this for 5 days. This woman wrote to us, Lewis. She's had body dysmorphia for 20 years. Has not been able to look at herself in the mirror. 5 days of doing this high five. And she said, I can look at myself and I even see beyond the body. I see the person. And I can grin. Wow. We had a woman who wrote to us who said that she was in a domestic violence shelter. She had escaped a very abusive relationship. She had seen me talking at our friend Jamie Kern Lima's event. She started doing the high five thing. She DMs us and she says that, you know, I have childhood trauma. I've just been in a physically abusive relationship. I've lost everything. I'm in a domestic violence shelter. What this high five in the mirror is teaching me is that I still have myself. And so that was when I said, I got to figure out what's going on. Right. And I started to unpack the research. And the research around this simple ritual, I love that you called it a ritual because I want people to habit stack this with brushing their teeth. Right. This is so life-changing. It's so simple. The science here is like, you can't believe it. And once I unpack it, you're going to be like, I can't believe how cool this thing is.
Right. So what's the science say?
Okay, so the science. Let's start with the first thing. So the first thing is that when you first try it, okay, you will not be able to raise your hand and high-five yourself and be like, you suck, Mel, or today's going to be terrible. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that for your entire life, you have given other people high fives. So when you give a high five or you receive one, what is a high five? Just the gesture alone. What does this communicate if we do this to each other? And we high five?
Nice job, good work. You're doing amazing. Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah, I believe in you. I love you. Let's go. If you blow a shot and you got to get back in the game, a high five's like shake it off. You can win.
Yes.
And so all of that lifetime of high fiving other people and the messaging associated with it is programmed right here in your subconscious brain. Right. There's a field of study called neurobics, which is about...
Neurobics.
I know, I didn't make that up. It's interesting. Physical movement plus new neurological activity. When you marry an unexpected physical movement with new neurological activity, it's the fastest way to forge new neural pathways in your brain. Okay? We know the example, you've covered this on your show, of brushing with the wrong hand and thinking positive thoughts. And the reason why that works is because when you're brushing with the wrong hand, it's unexpected, your brain doesn't expect it, so instead of drifting off about the fact that you need to walk the dog, you have to focus, so your prefrontal cortex is engaged. You're not used to high-fiving your own reflection, so it's an unexpected physical movement that then activates all of the positive programming in your subconscious. So when you raise your hand and you high five your tired self, Lewis, what happens is all of the messaging with this, the high five, I believe in you, I love you, I celebrate you, you got this, keep going, come on. It actually fuses with your freaking reflection.
Wow.
It's impossible to criticize yourself.
Yeah.
Your brain won't allow it because it's not wired that way when you're making that motion.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
It's hard to say you suck. You don't matter at anything. It's hard to,
you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And so this lifetime of positive subconscious programming associated with high-fiving other people gets fused with your own reflection in this ritual. That's just the beginning, okay? Wow. That's just the beginning. The second thing that starts to happen that's really interesting. So, we've had a ton of people do this, obviously, around the world. Super easy idea. It's spreading around the world. We start interviewing people about what's going on, and this is what we notice. We notice that one of two things happen when you first try this. So here's how I want everybody to try it. You're going to go into the bathroom and do it before or after you brush your teeth, and that's important because I want you to make this a ritual that's part of your morning routine. And so we need to stack it with something you already do. And you're going to stand there for a minute, and I want you to look at yourself. Now that right alone, most of us don't do. Look at yourself. Right. And I want you to just think about the day ahead. This is based on more research. So recent studies show from the University of Florida that if you take just a minute and you set an intention about how the day is going to go, about who you're going to be, how you're going to show up, what's the one thing that kind of matters to you to really make make progress on. If you just kind of set that intention, who am I going to be today? How am I going to show up today? Even if it's a hard day, how are you going to show up? And then you raise your hand and you seal it. Research shows just setting the intention alone changes your mood. It boosts your productivity. It increases your ability to make an impact on other people. And so when you seal it with this high five, it becomes this ritual of setting an intention for the day and also silencing the critic and reprogramming the default setting about how you see yourself, whether or not you believe in yourself. And you leave that bathroom feeling like the wind is at your back. Now, when people do this for the first time, so you're going to stand there tomorrow and you're going to go, okay, Mel Robbins and Lewis, geez, I'm sitting here, brush my teeth. Okay, this is stupid. You're going to just start rejecting it. I guarantee you. This is the coolest stuff you're going to have the biggest resistance to. And so for those of you that just raise your hand and do it, you're going to immediately be like, why have I not been doing this? It feels good to be encouraged and supported.
To high five yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why have I not had my own back? Why do I stand here and criticize myself? Why do I allow this moment every single morning to be a moment where life takes over and I drift into autopilot? Why am I not taking this moment for me to build a partnership with myself?
Yeah.
The second group of people, and this is the larger group,
Right.
resist it. And this is really interesting. And the reason why you resist it, and the reason why it feels weird, is because you believe you're not worthy of support or celebration.
From yourself or from others?
Period.
Wow.
Why
do we think we're not worthy of celebration?
Well, for people that grew up in a chaotic, violent, or whatever household, it was your lived experience.
Yeah.
I think that for many of us, we look back on our lives and, the cognitive negative bias has us focus on the things that went wrong. And so you begin to tell yourself a story about your life that is basically a pyramid of all the things that you regret, of all the things that you wish had done over, of all the things that you don't like about yourself. And so you drag that with you into the bathroom every morning.
Yeah.
And you stare at the mirror and you see somebody that has screwed up. You see somebody who's not where you're meant to be. You see somebody who doesn't have the number on the scale or the car that you wanted or the job that you had hoped for or the relationship that you had always dreamed about. And so standing there, you believe you're not worthy of support or celebration. And it's this deep belief. We talk a lot in the personal development space of, oh, I'm not good enough. I actually think that's the polite thing that people say. I believe that people have a much more horrible way of talking to themselves.
Like what?
I can't say it on TV, but I can say it on the internet. I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I'm worthless. No one will ever love me. I screwed up my life. I'm a failure. I'll never amount to anything. It's too late. I'm a bad person. I think people actually say this to themselves.
Yeah. And they say it over and over again.
Yes.
Daily.
Yes. And just like ruts on a dirt road, it starts to wear in your brain and it becomes the familiar path. And so you stand in front of the mirror and, I'm telling you, raise your hand and let all that positive programming you've given to everybody else. We are amazing at celebrating everybody else. We cheer for our favorite sports teams. We buy tickets to, our favorite musicians. We throw birthday parties for people. We take on extra work for our colleagues. We help our family members out and our friends out. But when it comes to supporting ourselves, we don't know how to do it. No. In fact, there's a lot of people that think it's selfish to put yourself first, or that you're arrogant if you do.
Right.
I'm here to tell you it is essential to your well-being, to your fulfillment, to your happiness, all of it. So if you're feeling resistance, you're either going to feel it because you already have a deep story that you don't deserve it because of your track record, your past, because of what's happening in your life. Or you're going to feel resistance because you have been trained to believe that you only deserve that kind of stuff when you're winning. Like, if I don't have that car, I don't get the high five. If I didn't get that promotion, I didn't deserve it. If I am not in a loving relationship, I don't deserve to be celebrated because I'm not actually achieving or doing the things that warrant that. I'm here to tell you, I'm on a mission to make every human being realize that if you wake up in the morning and you're breathing and you're standing in front of that mirror and you have survived the stuff you have survived and you are still waking up and trying to do better, you not only deserve a high five, you need it. Because what we also know based on the research is that empowerment, support, kindness, love, celebration, it is the single most motivating force on the planet. Tough love is a bunch of baloney. What really fuels people, particularly when you're going through a challenge, is feeling celebrated, seen, and supported. And the research bears it out.
Yeah, I can think of the times when I was with on sports teams where I had great, loving, encouraging coaches. It made me want to work harder from a more energized place, an abundant energy. But when I had the coaches that would just degrade you and put you down and call you names in front of your teammates and make you feel bad, it would drive me to try to be better, but it was always like harder. And I never felt satisfied. I never felt fulfilled. I always felt like even when I accomplished something, it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And then I repeat that pattern. Like, okay, I'm going to accomplish, but it's not enough to feel loved. And so let me keep accomplishing in order to feel loved, but I still don't love myself because it's not good enough.
Yeah.
So let me go for the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because I have a photo on my phone that my therapist told me to do this exercise in like 8 months ago, which was a strategy for me to reclaim the love for myself. So I have a photo of my childhood self. I don't know if people can see this on YouTube.
Cute you are.
But a photo of me, this is probably when I was like 5 or 6, maybe I was 7. But something that I've tried to do and really been integrating in my life is to reconnect with the child where I felt like I stopped loving myself.
Okay, so let's talk about this right now.
Yeah.
You ready? So let me talk about this image. So let's talk about the Lewis this age, standing in front of a mirror.
Yeah. And what I do is I stand in front of myself as a child. I imagine myself, but to do it, imagine looking at the mirror as yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm trying to say is when you were this age and you stood in front of the mirror, you had a totally different relationship with yourself because you still loved yourself.
Yeah.
You still thought that you were a great kid and you wanted all the things that the adult Lewis wants.
Right.
You want to feel loved. You want to feel seen. You want to feel heard. You want to feel like you matter. And you, in seeing yourself when you were this age, felt those things for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And somewhere along the way, you lost it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say is that when you stand in front of this mirror, exactly what Lewis is talking about, when you've got coaches that scream at you and degrade you and sure, it makes you run faster, but it leaves its mark.
It does.
It leaves its mark. And so there's research. So let me talk about why this is so motivating, particularly because so many of your audience love sports, right? So they did a study where they looked at NBA teams. And what they wanted to take a look at was, does fist bumps, backpacks, and high fives make a difference in a team winning? Touch, right?
Didn't they do like a 2020 special on this or something? I
don't know, but if they did, I need to watch it.
Yeah.
But so like the power of touch, but I think it's deeper. It's the power of encouragement.
Interesting.
And so what they found is that in the study, at least in the years that they looked at, you could take a look at the teams that made it to the championships in the NBA, go all the way back to the preseason, And those were the teams that had the most number of fist bumps and back pats and high fives. Yep.
Wow.
And the same was true about the teams that were the lowest in the league at the end of the season. They had the least amount of fist bumps, high fives, and touch. Why?
So they're the least encouraging.
Correct. Those sorts of gestures build trust and partnership. I'm telling you, when you stand in front of a mirror and ignore yourself, you're like the losing NBA team.
Interesting.
Selfish, on your own, isolated. You're not in partnership with the person you're staring at in the mirror. You don't have your own back because you're ignoring yourself.
Yes.
There's another study, and this one is, I think, even more powerful. So they did this study where they wanted to know what's the most motivating thing to help somebody get through a really big challenge. The researchers divide kids into 3 groups, right? And they gave each of the groups of kids very challenging problems to work through. And they wanted to measure, okay, how resilient, how long would they work, what were their attitudes like? And then they measured it based on, well, what form of praise or support are we going to give each one of these groups? And let's see what's the most empowering.
Interesting.
First group gets what we know to be the fixed mindset stuff. The praise was all verbal praise, and it was simply about a trait. Lewis, you are so smart. Lewis, you are a super student, praising something that is just sort of a compliment about you. The second group of students working on a challenging problem got praise based on work ethic, so something in their control. Oh, Lewis, you're working so hard. Lewis, you got such good perseverance. Lewis, you're really like just grinding away over there. Good job. Those guys did better than Lewis, you're smart. Lewis, hardworking, better. The third group, the researchers simply walked up, did not say a word, and high-fived the kid.
Really?
That's it. That's it. That group, literally, exponentially, more motivated, worked longer, worked through more challenging problems. Now, here's the big question. Why? Why would a simple high five with no verbal praise be more empowering and motivating and inspiring and develop more resilience and confidence and motivation inside somebody? And the reason why is this. A high five affirms your deepest fundamental needs. It's not just a gesture. When you high five somebody, particularly somebody who has either blown the free throw shot or is working on something difficult or going through a really hard time, when you high five them, you're saying, I see you. When you high five them during a challenge, you actually are acknowledging, I know this is hard. So the person feels heard. And because it's one-to-one, and you have to be really intentional. Like if you and I go to high five, like we have to focus on it. That was a good one.
That was good.
If you miss it, what do? You
got to do it again.
Correct. So there's an intentionality behind it, and that makes you feel like you're being affirmed as a unique individual.
Interesting.
And so all of those things are in that one gesture. Now, it goes even more. So there's even more here. So I was talking to our buddy, Dr. Daniel Amen, right? And so one of the world's leading experts on brains. He's got like 60,000 brain scans.
I think it's like 120,000.
Oh, is it at this point?
Crazy, yeah.
So he was so excited about the high five habit. He completely geeked out. He's like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. He's like, yes, neurobics. Yes, 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 yes. So he said, let me tell you what else is going on, Mel. And I'm like, really? There's more? He said, yeah. He said, you know how when you do it, you said you felt like a little kind of boost in your mood. He said, well, there are 2 things going on there. He said, first of all, when you cross a finish line in a race, what do you do?
Put your hands up.
Yeah. What do you do when your favorite team scores?
High five someone.
Yeah, you high five somebody. What do you do at a musical concert? Yay! What do? You're raising your hand in celebration when you high five somebody or fist bump them or put your arm around them. That raised arm gesture in a positive sense triggers your nervous system to tingle with celebration. It's the energy of celebration, even if you're going through something difficult. And even more, you get a dopamine drip when you do this. And so part of the reason why you feel this kind of shift in your mood and you feel a little bit of like, oh, okay, I can face this, I can do this, I got this, is because of the dopamine, it's because of the nervous system, and it's because of all of this positive programming associated with that gesture. Isn't that crazy?
That's powerful. It's powerful. I mean, so what does someone do, though, if they just constantly have the negative self-talk in their mind that they're no good? Do they go in front of the mirror, every 10 minutes and do this?
No.
Or is there another strategy behind the negative self-talk?
Well, okay. So first things first, definitely make this high five in the mirror a habit, okay? So start practicing it. Give it 5 to 10 days and start to see what happens. The second thing that you can do with negative self-talk, okay, is you need to start to interrupt it. So the thing about negative self-talk is that it is typically something you've engaged in since you were yay high. And in addition to it being wired into your brain, it is also something that can get triggered by your nervous system in stressful situations. And so the first step, and we can talk more about the filter in your brain and how the filter in your brain is causing you to stay stuck in a lot of this negative self-talk and how to use your mind to help you. But the first step is you got to do the awful part of getting self-aware
Yes.
of what the voice is saying. And the way that you do that, there's a couple techniques that you can use to create what researchers or psychologists call objectivity. You want to separate yourself from the voice.
Yep.
So you can do what Lewis is doing. He's writing down right now in a journal. You can keep just a little notebook with you, and you can kind of catalog when your attitude tanks. And what are you actually saying to yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So should we write down all the things we're saying?
You could.
Negative about ourselves?
You can. You can. I personally do it this way. I start to notice when I feel down, or I start to notice when my energy drops. And then I tune into what I'm thinking about. And if it's negative, I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I literally notice, oh, you're sitting there thinking you're a bad person again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that somebody's mad at you again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you screw everything up again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that that nothing ever works out for you. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you've blown it. Interesting. And then I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I go, I'm not thinking about that. That's the most basic technique to use, because what I want you to do, since this is like operating on autopilot, it's encoded right here. When you're not really thinking, this is what's running, kind of like the soundtrack of your life. When you just start to notice that you have a thought that's not helping you, you can't control that it popped up, but guess what you can do? You can smack it down.
Yeah.
And so I use the 5-second rule, which we've talked about a lot on your show. Count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The counting backwards awakens your prefrontal cortex. It gives you a moment of control. And then the way to build distance, Lewis, is say, I'm not thinking about that. And here's why. You're so used to thinking this way, I can't just say, stop thinking you're fat and start thinking that you love your body.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you've got to go, oh, there I am. I'm trashing the way that I look. I'm telling myself that I'm overweight. I look like shit. I'm hideous. Nobody's going to love me. Be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. It's an act of defiance. See, I want you to go from these negative thought patterns to a more positive, empowering, high five attitude. Because if you continue to live in, I'm fat, I'm unworthy, no one's going to love me, I've screwed up my life, that will be your life.
Right.
And the trick on this is, I'm not saying change your thoughts and unicorns appear. I'm saying change your thoughts so you stop the 24/7 beatdown.
Yeah.
And learn how to lift yourself up so that you can face the things that are going on in your life, and so that you can take the actions that you need to take to change your life. Because the reason why you're not changing is not because you're not capable. It's not because of the trauma or your past or anything else. It's because of the beatdown. That's why you're not changing.
Yeah, it's draining.
It's draining. It's demoralizing. It is, and by the way, if you constantly are like, I'm unlovable, I'm worthy, I'm this, I'm that, why on earth would you feel motivated, or do you think you deserve to change? If that's the thing in your mind. It doesn't work. And so pay attention. When you feel your energy go negative, be like, oh, okay, what am I, oh, whoa, that's disgusting. 5, 4, 3, I'm not thinking about that. You don't have to insert anything else. Let's just practice shutting it the hell up.
Right.
The second thing you can do is, once you kind of get good at interrupting it, I want you to name, like, let's turn it into a character. So I did this with our son Oakley when he was struggling pretty profoundly with anxiety when he was in the 5th grade. He named his anxiety Oliver. And then we asked him to describe Oliver. And Oliver was like this pimply faced kid that, what is that, the Diary of the Wimpy Kid kind of bully looking kid? And whenever the negative worries and stuff would come up, you could literally hear him go, Oliver, shut up. And it is the ability, what's happening when you name it and picture the person is that you're able to detach yourself from that voice in your mind that's talking. Because that voice is typically a caregiver that either talked to you that way or talked to themselves that way, or some bully or some trauma experience or some nasty coach that beat this into your head. It's from somebody else. And so we want you to separate yourself so you can be like, oh, that's what Oliver sounds like. That's not actually how I want to talk to myself.
Right.
And so identifying it, interrupting it, and then you can get into the really incredible magic of rewiring your brain to work for you.
Yeah, I think Ethan Kross, who's a psychologist out of the University of Michigan, has a book called Chatter, which is about all the different psychological strategies for eliminating the negative self-talk and improving the quality of your mind. And he says, start coaching yourself just like you would have a great coach coaching you. Have someone like a character in your mind coaching you, celebrating you with your self-talk to help you kind of shift out of that by interrupt it, then coach yourself.
What would Lewis say to me? What would Mel say to me?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the tricky part of this. So the tricky part of this is that I personally think most mantras are also complete garbage. And the reason why I say that is because you don't freaking believe them.
Right.
So if you think you're worthless, you're never going to be able to stand in front of a mirror and change your life by going, I'm worthy. Because your brain's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. We've been talking about this for your life. You're not worthy. You want me to show you something? So you have to interrupt it. And if you're going to try to replace it, what you need to do are two things. Number one, you have got to come up with, I should have called it pathetic mantra because it would have been easier to remember. In the book, I called it a meaningful mantra. We should just call it a pathetic mantra. You need to come up with something that's like, okay. You know, like if you're really like bad and you think you're a horrible person, like don't make your mantra, I'm amazing. Make your mantra like, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
something simple.
Yeah, you can believe that, right? You can believe, I'm trying. You know, I'm not meaning to screw up. I'm doing the best I can. Like that I believe.
Yeah.
And that's better than, boy,
I'm the best in the world right now.
No, you're never going to believe that. Ever, ever, ever. Like, for example, if you struggle with health and weight and stuff, it's probably going to be hard for you to stand in front of a mirror and be like, I love my body, because you've been rejecting it. So instead, look at yourself in the mirror and use a meaningful mantra. I deserve to feel healthy.
Right.
And I'm going to treat myself in a way that proves it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's different. It's different because it's believable. The only other thing that will change the way that you think is behavioral activation therapy. So there's a lot of the tools in this book that are grounded as a baseline in the body of research around behavioral activation therapy, which I know you talk about all the time on the show, which is basically act like the person you want to become.
Right.
If you want to be more like Lewis, act like Lewis. Follow his morning routine. Take his advice. Interrupt the garbage, Oliver, in your head. 5, 4, 3. I'm not talking to you, Oliver. What would Lewis say to me? How would Lewis talk to Lewis? And start to act like the person you want to become, and something interesting happens. And this is why the high five works, by the way, because it is an action. You are acting like somebody who believes in and loves themselves.
Yeah.
That's why it works.
Move into motion. Don't just think only, but move and act.
So when you see yourself, you know, we always talk about positive morning routines. Let's talk about negative ones, okay? Because your negative patterns are the reason why you have horrible self-talk.
Right.
Like when I was in law school, I hated my life. My anxiety was out of control. I was out of control. I hated law school. And so my behavior actually reflected my state of mind. I would wake up hungover. I would immediately think, oh my God, I'm late. I would then reach for a cigarette and light it. Then I would run around the apartment getting dressed and trying to find everything because nothing was organized. I would then quickly drive to Dunkin' Donuts, even though I had no time, to stop for a coffee. I'd get a big old coffee with 4 sugars and 2 creams, smoking another cigarette on the way, speeding my whole way there. Then I would sit in class, be panic-stricken about being called on. Same thing again. Then I would sit at lunch, pick at a salad, gossip with friends, avoid the homework. Then I would go to the library, procrastinate forever. Then I would drive home, split a bottle of wine with my roommate, fall asleep, wake up, repeat. When you see somebody's actions, you can typically predict just how bad they're trapped in their mind.
Absolutely.
But I think we all are. I mean, I think even people that have healthy habits don't have a healthy relationship with themselves. That your self-talk is ground zero. Because how you talk to yourself, what you think about yourself when you look in the mirror, that sort of default setting in your mind, geez Louise, I mean, it makes me really sad, honestly. I gave my first speech in 2 years because of the pandemic yesterday in Salt Lake. And there was a book line. And even though everybody had masks and they were 6 feet away, you could see the pain in people's eyes, the isolation, the sadness, the overwhelm, the feeling of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think that people are feeling way more uncertain and afraid than they're actually saying right now. That the sustained amount of change that we've been having to manage, it's too much. You know, it's a lot. And if you stand in front of the mirror and you can't see somebody that's worth supporting through this, you're just going to continue to go down. Because the one person that you spend your whole life with is you.
Yes.
And this is the relationship you need to be working on. Like you want to be loved, you better learn how to love yourself. You want to feel worthy, stop looking for it out there and treat yourself like you're worthy. How do you do that? Well, by pushing through the resistance and raising your, like if you can't freaking high five your reflection,
Right.
you can't do that. How the hell are you going to make things happen in your life if you don't think you are worthy of support and celebration, particularly when life is hard?
Yeah, how you gonna believe that other people are going to do that for you as well? If you can't do it for yourself, why would other people?
Well, actually, this is why people's relationships don't work out. Because you're looking outside yourself for the things you actually need.
For validation.
Correct. You are chasing people and seeking validation in romantic relationships. And that will end when you can stand in front of that mirror and validate yourself. When you build yourself up, when you support yourself, you show up totally differently for everybody else. When you know that you can have your own back, you're not going to be looking for the validation from your boss or your friends or all these other things. People have problems with boundaries because they can't look themselves in the eye. So how the hell are they going to look somebody else in the eye and say, actually, this doesn't work for me? Now we're going to jump into crushing your business goals, okay? And how a high five is relevant for you in business. If you want your team to feel motivated, if you want to crush your business goals, you need the high five habit, okay? Because this high five is not just for sports. You see, you need to be seen, supported, and celebrated at work too. There's research from Google that supports this. Everybody improves it. Google conducted a 3-year-long study called Project Aristotle. You can Google it. There's a big article in the New York Times that Charles Duhigg, who wrote The Power of Habits, wrote about Project Aristotle. Project Aristotle set out to determine what makes for the best teams at Google. The finding was the same as all of the research that I've already unpacked in Chapter 2, everyone. High-performing teams in work and life are ones where every team member feels seen, heard, and can trust their teammates. The best teams create what's called psychological safety. Feeling like other people have your back and will cheer you on makes you more resilient and optimistic at work. It creates an atmosphere of trust and respect. And to take it a layer deeper, everyone, research also shows that the single biggest difference in whether or not you enjoy your job and find your work meaningful is not the quality of what you're producing or the number of vacation days you get or even how much you're paid. The linchpin to your happiness at work is whether or not you have a boss who cares about you. How many of you can relate to this? How many of you can relate to this? The linchpin to your happiness at work is whether or not you have a boss that cares about you. It makes so much sense, right? That's because you have a profound need to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated in relationships, and at work, period. And so a high five embodies all of this, everybody. A high five in the mirror communicates those exact things to yourself. You see, a high five manager, a high five boss is somebody who has your back. A high five boss is someone you can trust and who trusts you. And when you walk into work, you want to feel like you matter, right? Of course you do. That's how you want to feel, everyone. I see pretty rude art saying that's why I quit my last job, you know? That's why I quit my last job, because I did not feel seen and appreciated. How many of you can relate to this, right? Well, that's why a high five in the mirror every morning is so important. It communicates those exact same things that you need to yourself. If a good day at work is about being appreciated, doesn't it make sense to start every day by appreciating yourself? Of course it does. High five, everybody. You think that's convincing? I want you to read this. All that research explains why high-fiving feels so motivating and empowering, but it doesn't end there. I'm not going to ask you to high-five yourself every morning in the mirror in your underwear and tell you it's going to change your life unless I really know it's going to make a difference. So I wanted to understand how a high five changes your brain at a structural level, because that's what I was experiencing. How many of you have been either participating in the high five challenge or you've read the high five habit and you're starting to high five yourself every morning in the mirror and you're starting to notice a shift? How many of you feel this? It's shocking, isn't it? It's a profound shift. Describe for our friends that have not tried the high five habit, who have not gotten the book, what you are experiencing when you high five yourself in the mirror, okay? You explaining it will help somebody understand why this is so profound.
For those who say, okay, I'm going to acknowledge this is negative. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling a funk. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now, how do they start to shift for those that are ready?
Okay, great. So if you are sick and tired of beating yourself up, if you are sick and tired of focusing on what's not working, if you are sick and tired of the self-doubt and the self-criticism and the self-hatred, this is a game changer. And I only learned this 18 months ago. So despite all of my success, Koya, on the outside, being me was this weird mix of having positive outbursts of energy and enthusiasm in the moment, combined with a deep, relentless, grinding internal voice that was critical, that had a lot of self-hatred, that was constantly making me feel like the world was aimed at me and that I was screwing everything up. That was my experience. And I think that is the majority of people's experiences. That no matter how good it looks on the outside, the majority of human beings who are adults either can't look at themselves in the mirror, and this was a huge wake-up call in researching the high five habit. 50% of men and women, and this is not a blind, double research, PhD-backed study. This is looking at hundreds of thousands of people that are taking the high five challenge. This is looking at the millions of people that follow me and the feedback that we're getting. 50% of the people that first try to do this high five habit, which I'll explain in just a second, report that they can't even look at themselves in the mirror. There is so much self-hatred, or disgust, or judgment. It is so sad. And I am on a mission to wake everybody up and to teach everybody a fundamental, simple habit that unlocks science in your brain and in your nervous system to help you break the habit of self-rejection and self-hatred and self-doubt.
Right.
And that's where the high five habit comes in. And so the high five habit is very simple. First, I'm going to explain it, and then we can kind of unpack it however you think will benefit everybody that's listening. So all you're going to do is you're going to stand in front of the bathroom mirror. And I want this to become part of your morning routine. And there's lots of science around why I want you to do in the morning. We can get to that in a minute. But you're just going to stand in front of your bathroom mirror. And I want you to take a moment and I want you to look at the human being in the mirror. And that right there is a complete change from what you're doing right now. Because what you're doing right now when you stand in front of the mirror and you brush your teeth, or you stand in front of the mirror and you get ready for your day, is you either ignore yourself, you won't even look at yourself. That's a form of self-rejection.
Right.
Or you focus on all the things that you need to fix. Your hair, your makeup, the things you don't like. And so you start your day with a habit in your morning routine of rejecting yourself. And that habit of self-rejection has created the insecurity that you feel.
Yeah.
That habit of self-rejection is what drives your need for validation externally. That habit of self-rejection is why you think you're only worthy if somebody else says that you're worthy. And so the high five habit is all about using science to break the habit of self-rejection and replace it with a habit of self-empowerment, self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-love. And here's how you do it. You're just going to stand there. You're going to look at the person in the mirror. And notice I'm not saying reflection.
Right.
There are two people in the bathroom every morning. There's you and there's a human being in the mirror who has been waiting for you to wake up and realize that they're there. They are trying. They are doing their best. They are so beaten down by your relentless criticism. They need you. They need you to see the positive. They need you to compliment them. They need to be kind to them.
Yeah.
And so I want you to take that in for a minute, because you're staring at your soul, at your spirit, at your essence, at your humanity. And most of us have never actually considered that. I hadn't. And then what I want you to do is I want you to just reflect for a second as you look at that human being. What does she or he or they need from me today? Something you've never asked yourself. Because right now, what your morning routine is that you drift into your day and you start thinking about everybody else. What do you need to do for everybody else?
Right.
What's all the things on your to-do list? You have skipped the most important person, and that's the human being in the mirror. And I want you to literally stop and ask yourself, what do he, or they need from me? And it might be, I need you to have some freaking fun. I need you to stop being a bitch. I need you to be a little more positive here. I need you to reach out to some people and ask for some help. Something will pop in your mind.
Yeah.
And then take a deep breath. And then, as cheesy as it sounds, I want you to raise your hand and I want you to high five that human being in the mirror. And something crazy is going to happen. So this is why this is so revolutionary. Regardless of how weird the high five habit feels, regardless of how much you may resist it, regardless of how kind of corny it is, you will immediately feel your mood shift, because your brain doesn't know the difference between high-fiving somebody else and high-fiving yourself.
That's what I love about it. I love that it's so simple and silly, because we need to play more.
Yes, yes. And so when you give somebody a high five, Koya, what does the high five communicate?
Yes. We got this. You're awesome. Just love.
Yes.
Basically, it communicates love.
It does. You're right. And it communicates a lot of different forms of love.
Yeah.
So it could be a high five that's really encouraging, I see this is hard. You got this.
Yeah.
It could be shake it off. Keep going. It could be I love you. It believe in you. We're together. It's partnership. It's this massive, wonderful feeling of love. You have never high-fived somebody and thought, I hate you. I hope you fail.
Yeah.
You're ugly. You're worthless. You've never done it. And so you can stand before yourself in the bathroom mirror and hate the person you see. Yeah. But the second you physically raise your arm and you do the motion that you've done your whole life, your brain shuts off all thinking and it taps into the programming in your mind that says, I believe in you, I love you, I see you, keep going. Yeah. And then you feel this boost in your mind and in your mood, Every time somebody else is giving you a high five, your brain has released dopamine. That's why high fives feel so good.
Yeah.
The other reason why a high five feels so good is because your nervous system recognizes it as somebody celebrating you. And so you get this affirming life energy that jolts through your body. And so your brain, again, and your nervous system doesn't know the difference between me high-fiving you and me high-fiving myself. So even on my lowest days, Koya, when I high-five myself, I get a dopamine drip.
Yeah.
And I get this nervous system boosting the energy. And that's why it feels so good. We are using programming in you and aiming it back at you so that you have the benefit of belief, of self-love, of positive mental programming, of dopamine, and of a jolt through your nervous system. It's freaking bananas.
That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. I love that it's so simple. I love giving myself a high five. And I love something that you say. You say, and I don't know if this is your quote or something from someone else, but you say, the way you view yourself is the way you view the world.
It's true.
That's powerful.
It's true. Well, let's talk about people pleasing. So many of us struggle with people pleasing. Well, people pleasing for a long time, I thought people pleasing was about like making other people like me. That's what you're doing, but that's actually not the source of people pleasing. People pleasing is not about the need to be liked by other people.
Right.
People pleasing results from you not liking yourself. So people pleasing is about you and your self-hatred and your insecurity.
Wow.
Yes.
That's going to wake a lot of people up.
What did you just get from that?
People pleasing is more about how you feel about yourself than how you feel about others.
Correct. Because here's the thing. If you like yourself, even though you're not where you are, even though if you like yourself, even if you don't like where you are in your life right now, if you can still look in the mirror and see a person who's trying, a person who's worthy of support, a person that you're going to root for, a person that you like because you deep down know, even though you're way more than you want to, even though you don't have the money you want, even though you're not in a relationship yet, whatever it is that you've been bashing yourself for, if you can look in the mirror and see somebody you genuinely like because you know deep down they're a good person and they're trying and they've survived a lot and they are a person that's worthy of being liked because you know who they are at their core. If you can feel that way about yourself and treat yourself that way by giving yourself a high five, that's how you demonstrate that you like yourself. When you go out into the world, if somebody doesn't like you, it does not take away from the fact that you still like yourself.
Right.
If you treat yourself with respect and somebody out in the world disrespects you, that will not change the fact that you still treat yourself with respect.
Right.
The core problem is that most of us look in the mirror and reject the person that we see. And then we bring that insecurity out into the world. And we are looking at lovers and bosses and friends and family to then make us feel secure or make us feel loved. When the root problem is we don't love and like ourselves. And so we got to bring all of that back in house.
Right.
Using the high five habit, you can show yourself, demonstrate to yourself, and practice what a person who likes and loves and respects themselves does, which is they wake up every day and they treat themselves with loving kindness. And the best part for me about the high five habit is you actually don't have to say a word. And in fact, I recommend that for the first 5 days, you don't. Because your self-critic and your brain programming is so negative and relentless, and it's been in there for decades, that I want you to feel the benefit of the science.
Right.
I want you to just stand there and look the human being in the eyes in the mirror. And I want you to raise your hand and notice what you're feeling. You can't help but crack a smile after you do this for a couple days because of the dopamine.
Right.
You can't help but shift how you see yourself because of the nervous system wiring. We've had reports back now from people who have said this really interesting thing. They've said, you know how can you recall a time in your life where you actually remember getting high fives?
Yeah.
When was it? Can you describe it? Put us at the
Basketball.
scene. Okay, put us right at the scene.
Oh, yeah. So playing basketball, I mean, that is the best place for high fives. High school, I mean, for a whole year, I rode the bench. But when I actually started getting rebounds, making points, high five. The more high fives I got, the better I got because it boosted my confidence in myself.
Correct. And, there's a study actually with the NBA that proves this.
Yeah.
So they took a look at NBA teams. Researchers did. I think this was in 2011. There's a massive article in the Wall Street Journal about this, as well as a published academic study. They looked at NBA teams. And do you know you can predict what teams are going to have the winningest record at the end of the season by looking at behavior in the preseason? And the behavior that predicts whether or not an NBA team is going to have a winning season or not is the number of pats on the back, fist bumps, and high fives that a team gives one another in the preseason.
Wow.
Because just as you said, based on your lived, felt experience, playing basketball, being in high school, being on a team, feeling the encouragement, the momentum, the support. High fives aren't gestures. They communicate trust and partnership and belief. So when you high five a teammate, you're communicating, we're in this, I believe in you, shake off that shot, even though you're on the bench, you're a valued member of this team, keep trying, keep going. And the corresponding data about the teams with the worst record was also true. They had the least number of pats on the back and fist bumps and high fives. Why? Well, when every player's in it for themselves, it creates distrust and selfishness.
Right.
And so by high-fiving yourself in the mirror, you can create that same partnership with yourself, and that same momentum starts to get created every single morning when you send yourself into the game of life every day, the way you would send yourself back into the game of basketball after having a team huddle.
I love that. And it actually brings me to one of the most important pillars of Get Loved Up, which is spirituality. And I kind of want to dive into spirituality with you because I feel like giving that high five is bringing people back into divine alignment with themselves.
Okay, say that again, because that is exactly right.
Giving that high five is bringing people back into alignment with themselves, with spirit, with the universe, with God. Because that negative self-talk is taking you out of alignment with love, out of alignment with spirit. And so that one act, because I know you say habits, I say ritual. We have so many different language, but what I feel when I give myself a high five and when I practice that positive self-talk is alignment with spirit.
1,000%. So all of the negative talk, like remember, let's go back to the two human beings in the bathroom, you and the human being in the mirror.
Yeah.
The negative self-talk stands between you two. And when you go to raise your hand and high five yourself, it is a moment of divinity with yourself, with your universe, with the spirit, with God, with whatever you believe in. You will feel that energy if you allow yourself to. You will feel yourself coming home. You will feel yourself stepping back into alignment with who you truly are in your essence, which is a being that is worthy of love, a being that is worthy of support simply because you exist. Like today is my 53rd birthday. And when I think about birthdays, right, what are you actually celebrating?
Right.
You're celebrating life. You're celebrating your breath. You're celebrating the fact that you're still here. And there is something divine about that. And every single morning, if you make the high five habit a ritual that starts your day, you are also bringing the celebration of your life and your existence into your morning. And the thing that I love about this, because, I love gratitude and I love meditation, and these are extraordinary practices that with documented benefit. I'm married to somebody who's a Buddhist meditation instructor and a certified yoga instructor.
I love Chris.
Yeah, Chris is just awesome. And interesting thing about Chris, though, is that here he is practicing every single day. He is a disciplined guy, right? Meditating daily for probably 8 years. Okay. Meditation teaches you self-awareness, and it teaches you how to not react to thoughts. It doesn't change the default opinion that you have about yourself. Gratitude, if you look at what most of us write down when we practice gratitude, it is external. It is rarely something within you. And what I love about the high five habit and why this simple ritual is so divine and spiritual is because it is about reconnection with self. It is and will. What I've experienced after doing this now for over a year is when I step into the bathroom, I don't even need to high five myself. I still do.
Right.
But what's happened over this repetitive ritual of raising my hand in celebration, encouragement, empathy, support, and love to myself every morning, no matter where I am, where I'm waking up, how I feel, just part of how I begin the day, is over time, because of the science, it has reset my mind.
Right.
I don't even see a person I would ever criticize. I don't even see my face. I just see this human being that I love.
That's beautiful. And I think with meditation, with the high five, with these rituals, it gives us the time to come back to center. And people use things in different ways.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it is the opportunity to come back to center, to kind of crowd out the noise.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.